Music was messing with me. Okay, we're ready.
That's correct.
Okay, camera set. We're good to go. Ben, what's our song of the day?
Oh, I heard a great song today.
Okay, let's hear it. Oh, wow.
Chain, chains. Woo, woo, woo.
All right.
Chain of Fools. You know that song?
Is it called Chain of Fools?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, I really sing it well. I captured the song.
For once.
For 10 trivia points. Who sings that song?
That would be the Temptations.
No. You're in the right decade.
Right.
That would be the great Aretha Franklin, the pride and joy of Detroit, Michigan. Okay. A lot of people think I have a powerful voice like Aretha. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, nobody thinks that. I heard that song last night. I've been singing it ever since.
How does it go again?
Chain, chain. Every chain has a weak link. That's a great line in that song. And then I forget what the next line is. Something about break. I forget. Anyway, chain, 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 chain of fools. I am not going to disgrace myself anymore by singing it. Yeah. Chain, chain, chain. Sorry. I just broke my promise.
All right, live stream chat. Weigh in. Let us know you can hear us here. We're going to go ahead and get started.
Yes, sir.
Ben Joravsky Show.
Time to get started.
Okay, yeah. The Ben Joravsky Show for your Friday. October 18th is moments away.
Right.
But before we get into that, we'd like to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. First up, it's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Association of Machinists in Aerospace, Not Aerosmith Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Friday, October 18th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain, professor and author David Faris, and 20th Ward Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist What's so funny?
Just thought of this organ in the background. I love the organ.
Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Another Point of View Friday. And here's why. So as we head into day 2 of the teacher strike, I figure, D, time to get another point of view. On our show, we've been listening a lot to the teachers who are striking. Union reps. We've had Stacey Davis Gates in the studio. We've had Brandon Johnson in the studio.
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
Bruce Rauner has not been in the studio, but I'm sure he has had a change.
In heart, he's been in the studio.
Oh, Ben, marijuana is bad. Anyway, Winnetka. He moved. He sold the house, D.
Gotta go.
Yeah, come out of here. I think he bought a couple more condos in the Loop. Anyway, enough on Bruce Rauner. Andrea Parker was here yesterday. Jim Steros, a teacher from King High, was here. Andrea brought her mom. We even had the mother of a teacher in here. What's going on, Audrey? I see you out there. So we've had a lot of teachers. We've heard the teachers' point of view as they point out the necessity to help kids in high crime areas, in low-income schools, from impoverished communities, try to get through life sanely and safely by, among other things, making sure that they have nurses and social workers and counselors and librarians in their school to prepare them for a future where they're going to be competing with kids from high-income neighborhoods where, of course, they have nurses and social workers and counselors and librarians in their schools. And by the way, if their kids are struggling in those schools, even with those wraparound services and even with the lower class size, the parents have enough money to take the kid for help, for tutoring, for therapy, whatever the kid needs. So, it's just, I had the teachers in here. I listened to them point out how unfair it is for kids from poor communities not to have access to just a tiny fraction of the same benefits that most middle class and upper class and wealthy kids just assume they're going to get. All right. So we've heard their point of view about how that's a necessity for a civilized society like we have here in the city of Chicago. To get the other point of view, D, you know what I did? I read the Tribune. Yes, sir. Home delivered. I support the Tribune with my subscription. You're welcome, Tribune. All right, so just so everybody knows, the Tribune's editorial board and most of its columnists who weigh in on the teacher strike are to the far right, to the right of Mitch McConnell on this thing, all right? So I figure, well, see what the Tribune has to say. And what did I discover? I discovered that the Tribune said, harumph! We cannot afford nurses, social workers, and counselors. Harumph! It's going to raise taxes on ordinary working people. John Cass, Dennis's favorite columnist, said it would...
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to wake you up over there. John Cass. One more time, D. It's John Cass, not Johnny Cash, okay?
I know.
Get it straight, all right? It said that hiring more social workers and nurses would drive people into serfdom. How about that, D? It's going to make us serfs if we have nurses and social workers and counselors in the poorest of poor schools. But this follows up on John Cass's recommendation that we hire nurses only if teachers pay for them. An interesting recommendation from Mr. Cass. Like I said, I'm wondering if the Tribune is going to ask its reporters and columnists to pay for the editors who clean up their copy. Maybe, it's good for the goose, good for the gander. Anyway, so that's the thing. Suddenly, when it comes to hiring nurses and social workers and counselors and librarians to help kids in the poorest schools, the city of Chicago, with the overcrowded classrooms, or maybe hire more teachers to reduce overcrowding, the Tribune says, we cannot afford it. Suddenly, the Tribune is like an accountant. We cannot afford it. We've done the numbers. It'll be a burden to the taxpayers. But it's kind of funny when it came to handing out $1.3 billion with a B to the developers in Lincoln Yards. I didn't see the Tribune or anybody at the Tribune worried about taxpayers. I didn't see them worried about the $1.1 billion we handed out to the developers of the 78. Isn't that interesting? It was property taxes. Same money that's going to be spent perhaps to pay for the nurses. But when it comes to paying for nurses, we can't afford it. When it comes to the $1.3 billion for Lincoln Yards, woohoo, we can afford it. Hey, how about the Amazon deal? Anybody remember the Amazon deal? Everybody's forgotten the Amazon deal. That was the one where...
What's the Amazon deal?
That was the one where Dennis's favorite governor, Bruce Rauner.
All right. So John Cass, boy, my future's screwed if someone listens to Dennis, we want to hire you. Oh, we listened to a previous Ben Joravsky show. You love John Cass and Bruce Rauner.
So I just wanted to make
you
sure.
You and me for life, buddy. Come hell or high water.
Bruce Rauner and Mayor Rahm. Remember that one day? They wanted to give $2.3 billion at least. Who knows? They wouldn't tell us exactly. But hey, money was no problem when it came for Amazon. Tribune was like a little pom-pom squad. Go, Amazon, go. Give them the money. Go. You know, they weren't worried about how much it was going to cost the taxpayer. They weren't worried about whether it was going to reduce us to serfdom, whether this is going to be the road to serfdom. When it came to giving out money to Amazon, the world's richest country, they weren't Scrooge. They were like, party like a rock star, dude. I tell you what, Tribune has a funny way of looking at things. Somehow or other, when they're taking our property tax dollars and giving them to the world's richest companies and some of the area's richest developers, it's not a tax hike. But when you spend the money to hire nurses and counselors and librarians for kids in the poorest schools, it is. It's a funny way of looking at things over at the Chicago Tribune. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain will be here in studio. She is every Friday. In fact, we're going to have a little fun. Rummana is, of course, an editor of the Sun-Times. We're going to have her edit Donald Trump's letter, the letter that Donald Trump wrote to the president of Turkey. It'll be fun hearing Rummana Hussain do that. At 2 o'clock, David Faris will be in the studio. We haven't had him on in a while. He's a Roosevelt University political science professor. Wrote a book, It's Time to Fight Dirty Democrats. And David Faris is going to break down all the news coming out of Washington these days and the presidential race. Are the candidates being forceful enough on impeachment? Are they letting President Trump get away with murder? And how would Republicans respond if it was the Democrats up to no good like Donald Trump? That's one of David Faris's favorite themes that he loves to investigate. It's part of the major theme of his book. It's Time to Fight Dirty. So we'll have David Faris here at 2 o'clock, and then 2:30. Boy, woo! Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor from the 20th Ward. She tells it like it is. You know, Stacey Davis Gates has been coming on. As soon as I had access to a microphone and a radio station, Stacey Davis Gates was a guest, and she's been a guest on the podcast, folks. So I'm glad the rest of the city is caught up with us, D, and they now recognize Stacey Davis Gates for the powerful force that she is from the Chicago Teachers Union, of course. Jeanette Taylor's no joke, folks. She's right there with Stacey Davis Gates. She's got a lot to say, and she's not afraid to say it. So we'll bring her on 2:30, get her opinion about everything from the teacher strike. I'm sure she's got a lot of opinions on that. How about the reefer law that the city council passed the other day? She was one of the 10 no votes. We'll see what she has to say about that. And she may have a thing or two to say about Donald Trump.
And she may bring some reefer. Who knows? That'd be awesome.
I really doubt that.
Oh, okay.
By the way, is Tommy Schuba coming in?
Reefer writer, Tom Schuba.
Yeah, he's the guy that we count on for reefer. Anyway, so it'll be a great show. Rummana Hussain, David Faris, and Jeanette Taylor. But before we do any of that, the pride and joy of Alton, the young man they call the doctor, has the news.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Dennis. You're the only person who calls me a doctor.
That's actually not true anymore. If you notice that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Well, hey, Doc. How's it going?
When we do live broadcasts, Dr. D, hey. Like, oh, hi. Guess I'm stuck with that for life. All right, everybody. How's it going? Let's talk about the news going on. And you know what we're talking about. It's Chicago Teacher Strike Day 2. And once again, I was reminded of that early this morning by car horns. So many car horns. I live right across the street from a high school. Like, good Lord, they're honking like crazy. But it looks like we may be getting somewhere with these negotiations finally. Both the city of Chicago and the teachers union have come to an agreement on one issue. class size.
Well, that's a big issue.
CPS has agreed to identify schools in crisis in class size needs. According to a source within the Chicago Teachers Union, the school district also called for a joint CPS-CTU committee that would identify class size numbers regularly, maybe monthly. In schools with a greater need, on the table is about $9 million to cover such an effort. A drop in the drop of the bucket of CPS's proposed $7.7 billion budget, the source said. It's the beginning of a discussion. It's huge. The union also wants caps on classroom sizes enforced, so negotiations continue. Larger sticking points here. By the way, this comes from Illinois Politico. Shout out to Shia Kapos and Illinois Politico. Larger sticking points. CPS wants to lock teachers into a 5-year contract with the union which the union finds outrageous, and union leaders want across-the-board increases in nurses and social workers that the city says would be financially unfeasible. Also up for discussion is affordable housing for students and teachers. It's not exactly a salary issue, but it is part of CTU's border demands for a better investment in the school system. All right, so we have some audio to play here. We have both sides of the story, all right? First up, let's hear from Mayor Lightfoot. She held a press conference this morning. And boy, if there's one thing to take away from this, the ball is in CTU's court. Okay. Here's Lori.
Well, the ball's in their court. We put a fulsome, comprehensive offer on the table. And as I've said now for many weeks, they need to respond in kind with a comprehensive counteroffer. And we need to be at the table every single day, 7 days a week, at least 10 hours a day, until we get a deal done. So the ball is very much in their court. We didn't leave the table.
Dee, where's the ball?
In their court.
Oh, okay, just want to make sure.
Very much in their court.
Very much in their court.
Well, is that a basketball reference or a tennis reference?
I can't get the words out. I do not know.
Right?
Where's Frank? Ask him. The ball is in their court. You know, I say it all the time. Oh, the ball is in your court. Tennis, wouldn't you say?
I would say tennis.
Like,
yeah.
I have to hit it back to you. And Lori Lightfoot, by the way, was a point guard in high school. Did you know that? I don't know if she ever played tennis, but yeah, listen. The ball, it's incumbent upon Lori Lightfoot to put the pressure on the union and say, they could settle this right now. The fact of the matter is she got elected in April, was it, Dee?
Yep.
And now it's October, right? And
you're asking me the most obvious questions. Yes, it's October.
Well, these are the ones I know you can answer, all right?
Oh, okay.
So I don't want to throw any curveballs at you. Like, name the rookie who scored 29 points for the Bulls last night.
Kobe White.
Wow, dang, man, look at the brain on Brad. But anyways, I would have liked to believe that the leaders of the union and Lori Lightfoot could have gotten together, I don't know, in May? Just informally talk and work things out, but apparently they couldn't. So the ball is in their court on October 18th. Let's hope they hit it back triumphantly for everybody. How about that, Dee?
He said that class sizes is something that you made some progress in. Yesterday, or this morning actually, he said that 80 to 90% of classrooms across the city are still not being addressed.
That's not accurate, because 80+% of classrooms across the city have no issues with class sizes. It's a small percentage. We have made some progress. We put together a new proposal earlier in the week before the strike happened to address some of the issues that had been raised in discussions. The ball's in their court, but we have made some progress. But there's still a lot of open issues that we have to get to, which is why we've made a specific request, at least 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, including weekends. And the principals, either Jesse Sharkey or Stacey Davis Gates, have to be at the table in order for this to move forward.
All right, that's interesting. Stacey Davis Gates and Jesse Sharkey have to be at the table, but she doesn't. But in terms of class size, listen, I'm not going to minimize this. This is a difficult situation that the Chicago public schools have faced for years and years and years, in part because so much of their population, as we talk about, there's homeless kids. They may start in one school and then switch to another school. There's kids who move to the city all the time, the kids who shift in and out of class, in and out of different schools. So principals and teachers, for as long as I've been following the public schools of Chicago, had to deal with this in a way that, like, their suburban counterparts don't have to deal with because it's a much more stable student enrollment body in the suburbs, where it's dictated by your largely dictated by your ability to afford the housing in the suburbs. So that's the reality that Chicago faces, that its suburban counterparts don't face. I would have liked to believe that it's sometime over 40 years of watching this, that the leaders of the Chicago Public Schools and the leaders of the teachers union and the political leaders in the city would have addressed this issue and figured out a way to deal with it. But unfortunately, they haven't. For a great deal of the time I've been covering school politics in Chicago, the teachers union didn't even get involved in this, Dee. But the teachers union was largely a union dedicated to what they call bread and butter issues, salary and that kind of thing. It's changed drastically since Karen Lewis took charge in 2010, and Stacey Davis Gates is sort of inheriting that mantle. But so this is the first time that I can recall that this has been an issue at the bargaining table. And like everything else in this strike, the worst possible place to deal with these complicated issues of poverty is the bargaining table. It's during a union contract. I can't think of a worse place to do it. You would like to think that all sides could get together away from the pressures of having to sign a contractual agreement and figure this stuff out as sort of partners in all this. But that's not been the way it's done in the city of Chicago for as long as I've been following the schools. So let's hope things change with this strike.
All right, now the ball's in my court. We got one more clip to play here from Lori's press conference this morning. If we can.
Jesse also said that you saying there's no more money is stonewalling. What do you say to that?
No, the fact is there is no more money. Period.
What is the latest proposal that's been put on the table in terms of staffing and when it comes to the social workers, counselors, nurses?
Well, look, I don't want to get into the specifics. I think that's more appropriate for the bargaining table. But suffice it to say, we made very specific commitments to staffing back in August when the CPS passed its budget. 200 plus more teachers, nurses, counselors, and special ed case managers. There's been some discussion about how we move that forward. Last weekend, before the strike happened, we made a commitment to put $400,000 as a set-aside specifically to help build the pipeline for staffing, but there's still open issues that we have to resolve.
Well, I tell you, I've said this many times in this show, Dee. There's a big difference between putting in the budget a salary for a nurse and actually hiring a nurse. And so that's an issue that the teachers union is trying to force Mayor Lightfoot to agree to put it in the contract. So, look, it's words. It is a tennis game, Dee. It's just like batting it back and forth. And I don't know. I do not know. It could be really interesting to see if Lori Lightfoot actually agrees to put these jobs in the contract, because right now the state law exempts her from that responsibility. And if she does put it in the contract, then it's an obligation, one more obligation that she has, one more commitment she has to the public schools. I would welcome it. I would welcome that commitment, but I have to see it to believe it. The mayor of the city of Chicago agrees to that.
All right, moving on here. We've heard the mayor's thoughts. Now, thankfully, this morning, as I was watching TV, I couldn't find my remote control. Seriously, I couldn't, and it was stuck on Fox 32. I was watching something. You ever have that? Like those? I was watching, the last time I was watching TV, it was on Fox, and I was there, and then I couldn't find the remote control. But luckily, Stacey Davis Gates was on Fox 32, and a fellow by the name that you know very well, Mays Jackson, for Fox 32. They were talking about the teacher strike.
Not together.
Not together, separately. Okay. Yeah, they were on the same program, but separately talking about the teacher strike. I have Stacey Davis Gates audio. Man, she's cool. I love Stacey Davis Gates. But first we're going to hear from Mays Jackson and his thoughts. Ben heard this earlier, and I think he wants to share his thoughts with all of you.
So let me start here and say that I think while we're talking a lot about CTU, this is really a power play. This is really CTU flexing their muscle after the election. I think they had a lot of plans if Toni Preckwinkle would have been elected. Seeing that she wasn't, they're going to teach this mayor a lesson. I also question just...
Do you think Toni is the puppet master here in the background?
I wouldn't say she's the puppet master, but I'm going to say that she's probably nudging things ahead and not saying, hey, how can we fix this? Because again,
push harder. You could do this. You can get more.
I think Toni Preckwinkle could be a great opportunity to bring these people, to bring everybody together. But I think that she has a vested interest in seeing this strike weaken the mayor.
Okay, so 5-year deal. You work on a contract. I do. Scott does. If your bosses came to you and said we could do a 5-year deal or a 3-year deal?
Sure. If my boss came to me and said I could get a 1-year deal at the way things work these days, I would take it. But I think a 5-year deal is, I mean, that even outlasts the mayor's
So that's why some people suspect that it could be politics here because it's timing.
It's not suspecting it's politics. This is all politics. This is Chicago. So we got to understand what is happening here. They will have no stronger leverage than at this point right now with Mayor Lightfoot.
So it's all politics, and Preckwinkle's involved as well, according to Maze Jackson. Ben.
I love Maze Jackson. I got to put this out there. Maze, old friend. He used to have a radio show on WVON many years ago, and he occasionally would have me on, and I guess he figured I was too lefty and wouldn't have me on. That's okay, Maze. I forgive you. All right. But anyway, we debated marijuana. Did you know that, Dee? Many years ago, we had a very interesting debate on marijuana. I was for legalizing it. He wasn't, but whatever. So Maze is a little more conservative than I am, politically speaking. But I'm very proud of him. He got that good gig at Channel 32. Hope you got a good contract, Maze. Hope you got a better contract than the teachers have with that gig at Channel 32. But it's so funny he would raise Toni Preckwinkle's. Why are you raising Toni Preckwinkle's name? Toni Preckwinkle got clobbered in the last election. She's got less power pretty much than any of the 5 main politicians in the state of Illinois when you think about it, Dee. When you think about the big 5, Toni is like at the bottom of the list. And yet everybody wants to pick on Toni. You know, it's so funny that let's bash Toni. I remember Maze was very critical of Toni Preckwinkle with the soda pop tax. What did he call her? He had a nickname for her. What was it, D? I can't remember. The soda pop queen or what was it?
Sugar Queen.
Sugar Queen, you know? So it's just so funny that Toni Preckwinkle, who was humiliated in the last election, has probably less power than anybody of the major 5, Cullerton, Madigan, Pritzker, Lightfoot, and then Preckwinkle, a distant 5th, is suddenly being thrown out there like she's the power player behind the scenes. What did he say? She's got a vested interest in seeing the mayor weaken. Why? She's not running for mayor again. Toni Preckwinkle got clobbered. What does she gain if Lori Lightfoot looks bad in this fight? Look, man, I agree with Maze in this. There's politics involved in absolutely everything in the city of Chicago, but there's a basic fundamental point here. This is how I would position it. It's how are we going to spend the money that we have? I put it out there at the very top of the show. There's always forces in the city that want to take our property tax dollars and give it to developers or give it to Amazon. And then there's forces in our city that want to use it to hire nurses or counselors or social workers, union jobs. All right. So that is a struggle. That is a political struggle. That's a very real struggle here in the city of Chicago. Folks, the people who pay the taxes, the people who vote in the elections, or even the people who should be voting in elections don't vote in elections have to decide, how do they want their tax dollars spent? Do they want to go into the Amazons of the world? Do they want to go into the Lincoln Yards of the world? Or do they want to go into nurses and counselors in the public schools? That is a political decision that the voters of the city of Chicago have to make. And you know what? When Lori Lightfoot was running for mayor of the city of Chicago, she did nothing to lead people to believe that she was going to side with the Lincoln Yards of the world against the nurses and the social workers of the world. In fact, it was just the opposite. She said that she was against the Lincoln Yard deal, and she wanted nurses hired in the public schools. So now here we are, what is it, 6 months into her reign, and she has used her lawyers to destroy the lawsuit that challenged the Lincoln Yard handout, and she's like fighting, hiring, the union's attempts to put it in the contract to hire more nurses. So there is a political struggle. Maze is absolutely correct, but the political struggle is not between Toni Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot. The political struggle is to determine how are we going to spend the money that we give to our government. That's a very real struggle that's ongoing and has been ongoing for as long as I've been in the city of Chicago.
So that's Team Lightfoot, all right? We've heard from that team. Now let's hear from the teachers. Like I said, Stacey Davis Gates was on Fox this morning as well.
CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates joining us again this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, don't get too excited, Fox. My goodness.
They love Stacey Davis. Suddenly Fox has discovered Stacey. Wow, she's really good.
I've heard more enthusiastic intros.
CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates joining us again this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got to hear her again.
Joining us again.
Oh, can we have Mays back? We like Mays.
All right, so I got, let's see, I got 5 clips from Stacey Davis Gates on Fox. All 5 equally awesome.
Second day of the strike, and you know, union leaders, they received a written offer, a contract offer about the class size. So to me, that sounds like progress, but you guys were at the table. How do you feel?
Well, I feel good that we finally have an offer in writing. We've been saying that for the last 10 months, that we needed offers in writing that reflected the transformation that we've been working for the last 10 years, to be honest with you. You know, lots of people are asking, why are you striking? We're striking because we have nurses who are only in schools 1 day a week, with students who have diabetes, with students who have asthma, students who need a nurse there all 5 days. We're striking because class sizes in Chatham and in Bronzeville top over 40 in classrooms. We're striking because social workers are desperately needed in communities that are dealing with unparalleled trauma.
Okay, so just really quickly, so having it in writing, and as I was saying earlier with Dr. Jackson, everybody can make promises.
Yes.
But, you know, you have seen, and I'm sure, you know, we've seen promises are promises, but if it's not in writing and management changes, if it's not in writing, it doesn't matter.
Well, we've seen years of promises. Since 1995, we've been promised efficiencies. We've been promised equity. Since the mayor has had control of the Chicago public schools, we had a mayor that closed down 50 schools. We have that mayor took 2 strikes from the Chicago Teachers Union. And now we have a mayor who has made promises to transform, to be a just mayor, to lead with an equity lens. And we're just asking her to put that in writing.
All right, that's an interesting exchange. By that, the Fox TV announcer sounds like a column by me when she's interviewing Stacey Davis Gates. You know, yeah, at least if you don't get it in writing, it's no good, right? Wow, that's very good, Fox TV news announcer. But then, you know, when it's Mays Jackson on, she's like, oh, man, what a bunch of politicians, right? Mays is like, yeah, they just want to. It's just a fight with Tony Preckwinkle. So anyway, it's, hey, man, listen, it can't be easy being a Fox TV announcer with this strike because you got to deal with the unions, Stacey Davis Gates. But, yeah, she lays it out there, D. How are we going to spend the money on things like Lincoln Yards and Amazon, or are we going to spend the money on our schools? That's an essential issue. That's the essential issue that Tony Preckwinkle lost. She was forget Tony Preckwinkle for the moment, that Lori Lightfoot has to deal with now that she's mayor of the city of Chicago.
One of the divides, at least as of this morning, is a sense of urgency. As Anita just alluded to, we had Dr. Jackson sitting right where you are. She seems to believe that her sense of urgency is greater than yours. Let's take a listen to what she said and have you comment on the backside.
We agree philosophically. Let's get to the table and debate these things out and get something settled. And I'm just being honest, we're not seeing that same sense of urgency from the partners at CTU. Kids are out of school now. It's time to come to the table and give us a realistic proposal, not the $2.5 billion proposal that's on the table. We can't afford that here in Chicago.
And let me just add to that. One of the narratives has been CTU was hell-bent on striking from the beginning, and that you all are dug in. 94% of the rank and file said yes to this strike, and there is no hurry to get a deal done. What would you say to her comments?
Well, I would say that you don't get 30,000 educators on the streets of Chicago en masse because we are hell-bent on taking a strike. You get them because they want nurses, social workers, and smaller class sizes. You get them because they want their school communities to be transformed. Further, look, we have a 40-person bargaining team. The people bargaining this contract are the people who will be implementing the contract in the school communities. So you have elementary school teachers there. You have early childhood educators in the room actually going over line by line the contract. We want to get this right. Chicago has a tremendous opportunity to get it right. We're not arguing over whether we should be just and equitable. We're arguing over how we provide justice and equity in the school right now.
Well, I got to tell you, I was really disappointed with Janice Jackson's comments. We can't afford that. Now, listen, I know it. I realize it's a union negotiation. I realize that the teachers come in high and they're going to have to settle for something less than they're asking. That's how negotiations go. But to hear the CEO, the chief executive officer of the Chicago Public Schools saying we can't afford to hire the nurses, the social workers, and counselors after she was silent silent when $1.3 billion went out for Lincoln Yards, when $1.1 billion went out for the 78, when all that money was put on the table for Amazon. Silence in the face of this money, which is coming out of the public schools, diverted from the public schools through the TIF program. Silence from the Board of Education on that. But when it comes to demands that we hire nurses for the classrooms, suddenly we can't afford that. There's something wrong with our priorities here in the city of Chicago, particularly with our leaders. I would like to hear the leaders of our public schools saying, we can't afford to spend money on Lincoln Yards, developing a community in a gentrifying neighborhood, but we can't afford nurses. Instead, I hear them say we can't afford nurses, but silence on Lincoln Yards.
Explain to me, though, if you want that contract, why wouldn't you get a 5-year deal? I mean, if they offered me a 5-year deal here at the station, I'd take it over a 3-year deal.
Oh, brother.
You know, it seems to me, and a lot of people are of the opinion, in fact, I was talking to people last night, and they were saying to me, this is definitely political because they're trying to time it so that they're going to be able to protest again. Why not grab the 5-year deal when they want to give it to you?
Look, can I be honest with you?
Please.
We don't want the mayor to be in control of our schools so politics can come directly out. The most substantive discussions that we have at the table are with the educators at the table, on both sides of the table. We would implore the mayor to use this as an opportunity to make sure that we get an elected school board in the city of Chicago where all of the stakeholders have a voice. Look, I am so sick of going back and forth in sound bites. I am so sick of the back and forth of polling, the back and forth of popularity. I want a nurse in a school building 5 days a week for students with asthma and diabetes so school clerks don't have to administer medicine.
Are you confident that a week from today you'll be back in the classroom?
I am working very hard on that, but I'm also saying this to you. We've been working very hard on this for the last 10 years as well. We've been at the table for 10 months, and we are glad that the mayor of Chicago and the CEO finally have a sense of urgency.
All right, let's iron this deal out maybe over the weekend, and then Stacey Davis Gates can go back to being a guest on the Ben Joravsky show, yeah, among other things, and Fox TV can go back to doing whatever they do as well.
Well, you say a guest on the Ben Joravsky show, but she will be a guest November 5th, on first Tuesday. What the Hideout, isn't that right, Ben? Tell them all about it.
What a transition that was. Did you go to radio school?
Teamwork, baby, teamwork.
Rummana Hussain is in the studio, and one more time, just seeing Rummana remind everybody that my dear friend Mick Dumke has moved on. He's no longer going to be my partner in crime at the Hideout, but the show goes on. Amaya will be my co-host, and our first show will be November 5th. And yes, indeed, Stacey Davis Gates will be our guest. And I hope, Rummana, I really hope the strike will be over by then, and we'll be talking about how everybody came together for the better interests of taxpayers and students and teachers, et cetera, and so forth. But Stacey Davis Gates at the Hideout, November 5th, 6:30, 1354 West Wabansia.
So there you are. That's what's going on locally now. And podcast fans, the Sun-Times political web series, The Fran Spielman Show, is now available as a podcast. Yes, she's our studio roommate. The Fran Spielman Show features weekly interviews with the lawmakers, journalists, and others who are shaping our city. Fran holds nothing back. She really doesn't. That in a press conference with Lori the other day. Oh, man.
Lori Lightfoot.
She holds nothing back. She goes deep into City Hall to bring you the real scoop on Chicago politics. And now you can listen to her show on all of your favorite podcast apps. Head to City Hall with Fran and get even more great political coverage from the Chicago Sun-Times. Listen and subscribe now at suntimes.com/Fran Show. That's suntimes.com/Fran-Show. The Ben Joravsky Show will be right back.
Are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago? Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago? I mean, I can't believe that you said 2 minutes ago that they had to buy in, and now you're saying they don't have to buy. You're forgetting that.
I said anyone like your grandmother who has no money.
We need a healthcare system.
You're automatically
enrolls people regardless of whether they choose to opt in or not. If you lose your job, for instance, his His health care plan would not automatically enroll you. You would have to opt in. My health care plan would. That's a big difference.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
It's Friday. That means the Rummana Rundown. Rummana Hussain, editor for the Chicago Sun-Times, comes in every Friday, gives us her thoughts on the world as it is. Welcome back, Rummana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, every Friday every Friday.
My favorite part of the day.
God bless you. I hope it is. I know it's a break. It's got to be a break from it. Well, you don't have to say like, well, everything else is so bad. So, but it's definitely one of my favorite parts of the day. All right, the strike is on and the mayor's political honeymoon is over. Dennis alluded to this. Fran Spielman, who shares this lovely little studio with us now.
Yeah, have you guys crossed paths yet?
No, because Fran is an early to bed, early to rise type of person, getting that worm.
Very regimented. I met her first when I was at City News. She was the first one in the office at 9 a.m. sharp. She was out of the office by 5 p.m. sharp. And she had more stories than anybody else, and everybody's struggling to get their one story in for the day.
Fran Spielman is a force of nature, and that's
maybe one day you guys will meet.
One day I'll be one day I may get up early. But anyway, a very good story analysis, they call it. It's more like a column, but it was very good about Lori Lightfoot and the pressure she's facing as we're in day 2 of the teacher strike. Lori has swept the office with like 75% of the vote, a triumphant victory. She was riding high, and now bam, she's getting it from all sides. She got lefties like me upset at her because we want more nurses hired. You got the Tribune bashing her for even thinking about hiring more nurses. So you edited the story.
Yeah, it was an analysis is what we call those types of stories where Fran is kind of analyzing the situation. One of my colleagues said, oh, Fran is going pretty hard on I don't know. I think Fran is just basically just showing that not everyone is excited about Lori Lightfoot within the first couple months of her being in office. And the CTU, to be fair, I mean, to Lightfoot, the CTU wasn't even endorsing Lori Lightfoot. They were Tony Preckwinkle's. They liked Tony Preckwinkle. They endorsed Tony Preckwinkle. They were one of the largest supporters. So a lot of people have kind of said that this is what they were going to do anyway. That's just the thinking that a theory a lot of people have. I know Janice Jackson was Fran Spielman's guest last week, the first guest in the studio for Fran, and I think she mentioned that they would have done something similar. Janice Jackson, the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, mentioned that she thinks they would have done something similar to Preckwinkle, but who knows, because Preckwinkle's not mayor. But Fran just basically said that the honeymoon's over for Lori Lightfoot, and she just talked about how the teachers were very angry, obviously, and then she talked about how Lori Lightfoot she went to a community center yesterday and read a book to the kids. It was called A Bad Case of the Stripes. And she told the kids that the lesson of the story, the book was about this girl who likes lima beans, and she didn't want to admit that she liked lima beans because of peer pressure, because most kids probably don't like lima beans.
I kind of like lima beans, but that's neither here nor there.
I didn't like vegetables growing up.
Do you like them now?
No.
Wow. Okay. Confession time on the Ben Joravsky Show.
I get forced to eat them by someone in my household.
I wonder who that could be. But continue.
Anyway, she basically said that the moral of the story, she's telling the kids, is do what you think is right, and don't worry about whether people like you or not. So she's probably talking about herself. And then I think she basically, I think she talked a little bit about, she talked to reporters afterwards, and she thought that, the CTU was bent on going after her. I think she kind of hinted at that, and she mentioned that she is getting support from people.
Yeah, she gets.
And I don't know if you read the latest. We have a running blog. Yesterday when I was driving, I saw at least 4 groups of teachers. When I was driving from home to Rogers Park to the office here in the West Loop, I saw like 4 big groups of teachers, banded outside and talking to people. And there's more teachers today. I saw at least 2 or 3 groups today, on the overhead passes on the highway. I saw like at least 2 coming into work. And there was a group that was outside Lori Lightfoot's home. And they had said that, she had a note that said, with donuts, the Lori Lightfoot put out and said, "I hear you, and I'm trying to work things out." So I know she said, "I hear you," for sure. And then I think they responded, like, "We don't want donuts, we want like nurses," or something like that. Like they were tweeting pictures of what the Lori Lightfoot's note. So they're outside her house too, and she's giving them donuts. Although a friend of mine who works in the CPS administration, I asked her, I was talking to her about the strike, and I'm like, I don't know, a lot of people think it's a pretty good deal, and we're going back and forth. And I was trying to listen to her, and she told me, I asked her, I'm like, if she was going to be picketing, and she goes, well, she told me sometimes administration, where whatever she does, she works on curriculum. Sometimes they're included in the union, and sometimes they're not. She said it's really.
Children fidgeted or yawned while others listened intently. Mayor Lightfoot read aloud a book she loved to read to her own daughter, A Bad Case of the Stripes. Quote, "So the moral of the story is be true to yourself. Do what you want. Don't worry about whether or not people like you," the mayor told the kids. And then here's Fran. "Lightfoot can only hope that the moral of David Shannon's story about a girl who loves lima beans but never eats them because of peer pressure applies to the crisis she now confronts." Good job, Fran Spillman. Yes, indeed. Lori can only hope that. All right, let's move on away from the teacher strike and Lori Lightfoot. We've been talking about that a lot lately. A big story in both papers today. Robert Rialmo, the former Chicago police officer, was fired by the Chicago Police Board. Talk about that.
We actually had a story in today's paper, and we had a story the day before, just basically predicting that this was going to happen. This is Robert Rialmo. He is the officer that shot Quintonio LeGrier and Betty Jones. Quintonio LeGrier was a young man whose father had called the police on him because he had a bat and was attacking the dad, or there was some sort of fight going on, domestic incident. This happened in December 2015, right after the Laquan McDonald tape came out. I still remember when this happened. I was like, oh my God, I was on the desk. And so he ended up shooting Quintonio LeGrier, 19-year-old man, and he ended up shooting Betty Jones, who was the neighbor. She was the one that opened the door for the officers and directed them upstairs. And there's varying opinions about what exactly happened. LeGrier's family or his estate says that Rialmo just, he was retreating, and then that's when he got shot. And Officer Rialmo said that he had actually, Quintonio LeGrier had swung the bat at him. So this has been on the police board's agenda for a long time. And originally, Eddie Johnson said that it was justified. There was a Cook County jury that said that had ruled the shooting justified as well. So the family, LeGrier's family originally got $1 million, but then I think it was rescinded, from what I understand, because of the ruling by the Cook County jury. And Betty Jones's family got $60 million in a settlement with the city. So, and then, I'm sure some people have heard that Robert Rialmo got into 2 bar fights after this incident, but that we know of. And so yesterday there was a 7-0 vote. 2 people had recused themselves from the Chicago Police Board for him to be fired from the Chicago Police Department.
Yeah, and the issue is, I suppose, that his behavior may not be criminally liable. He may not be forced to go to jail. He may not have broken the law, but it's not behavior that you would want from a police officer. And so they're going to strip him of his position, his police powers, his gun, his badge, etc. And the articles in both the papers, both the Tribune and the Sun-Times, make it clear that it's a classic case like this, Rummana. It seems as though stories change. Rialmo's story changed from the first time he told it to where he's told it now. The witnesses have different points of view. Eddie Johnson dismissed one witness. This was interesting. One witness who said that Joe did not swing the bat at Rialmo LeGrier did not swing the bat at Rialmo, and Eddie Johnson dismissed it, saying, well, he was smoking marijuana at the time, so he just dismissed his testimony completely. So when you get into a matter like this, it's just like the fog of war almost.
Yeah.
You don't quite know what to believe.
Yeah, of course. And then, I wasn't there, but you look at something like the Laquan McDonald situation where police were saying one thing and that he was lunging towards them with a knife, and he really wasn't. So, everybody has their accounts of what happened or what didn't happen. And no one's saying that, Quintonio LeGrier, obviously it was a domestic incident. He did have a bat, but what he did with the bat, that's the question. And there's just varying opinions. A lot of people had said that he just should have had Robert Rialmo should have had a taser. Like, why use deadly force in this situation? And that's what I think the police board was saying, that he didn't have to go to that measure to, shoot. And, I've talked to officers before. They're trained to shoot to kill. I always thought, why can't you just shoot them in the leg if you find someone a threat? But they said they're trained to shoot to kill.
Yeah.
Which I find odd. But that's, I'm not part of the law enforcement.
Well, I've never shot a gun, but I just saw a really dumb movie last week. Not to trivialize this, but a really dumb movie, J-Lo. Having seen Hustlers, I went back into time, started watching old J-Lo movies. I'm a little embarrassed to admit this.
Oh, I loved her rom-com movies.
Well, this was,
even though they're cheesy.
I think this was kind of Out of Sight
wedding.
with George Clooney.
Oh yeah, that was supposed to be a good movie, though.
Yeah, it was okay. But anyway, the point is, at the very end, she had to shoot George Clooney to stop him from doing something. So from across a room, she just one shot, hit him in the leg, just like you're saying. He went down, but it was like a flesh wound. You know what I'm saying? It was just like it was enough to stop him without seriously hurting him. And then, like in the next scene, he's totally healthy and hale. So I just think that it's easy. It's obviously what that officer was facing at that moment, and that what was going on in his head, what he saw, what literally happened. It was just a mixture of things. Yeah. And the notion, I just don't know if anybody could just shoot somebody in the leg, like, you know what I'm saying, at that moment.
It's a high stakes situation, I don't know what happened. That's a thing. Like, if he didn't do anything, it's just like, how did this escalate from point A to point Z? It's definitely something that, people are talking about. And I didn't follow the case from day one. I mean, I followed the case when it was in front of a jury, but the jury came up and said this was justified.
Well,
so I don't know. It's.
Listen, in the city of Chicago, or really any city, I suppose, there's a tremendous amount of leeway given to police officers who are, somebody's charging at them with a bat. Yeah. And
nobody's saying that police officers don't have a hard job. They probably do have people. They have people that shoot at them. Mm-hmm. But this wasn't a gun. And some people are just saying, why didn't he tase him? Yeah. He should have had a taser. He should have taken a taser. And then, there's questions of his temperament if he's getting into bar fights. People think a lot of officers are very trigger happy too. So
there was a column in the Sun Times yesterday. It took the extreme point of view that nobody would want to be a police officer anymore because police officers are facing criminal prosecution for matters like this. And they were alluding to the case in Texas where a police officer shot a woman. She was in her house with her kid, and they were investigating a complaint from a neighbor. There's some parallels to the shooting, and I had a hard time buying the argument that the gentleman wrote in the Sun Times. First of all, I know a lot of people who want to be police officers still. And
there's a lot of people who are police officers and families, like generations, and something that they do. Not everybody. I'm not saying that that's just the way, but there are families like that.
Anyway, so it is a tough job. I realize that, but I don't know. Just shooting somebody and they're sitting in their house is an extreme.
No, I agree. And I don't know if you saw, but Jason Van Dyke also resigned from the Chicago Police Department this week.
I did not see that.
Yeah, we did a short story on that since we're talking about the Laquan McDonald case.
All right, let's move on. Speaking of which, Eddie Johnson, any updates on his condition?
No, I haven't heard anything, but if everybody read the news yesterday or followed the news today, Eddie Johnson was found slumped over early morning on Thursday, 12:10.
Police
like right
Chief
after
Eddie
midnight.
Johnson.
Slumped over in his car.
Mm-hmm.
And as everyone knows, he's had kidney problems. He actually had an operation and took one of his sons, had a kidney transplant using his son's kidney. Anyway, he was found slumped over. They said there was no signs of an intoxication. And I thought this was a joke when he's asked the internal affairs to investigate his case. I thought that was a joke when I first saw it. I was like, wait, I think that's a mistake we have in our story, that he wanted his own case to be investigated. But he's saying that, people can investigate me to see, because he let his driver go. He had a late night dinner, and so he was coming back home. I don't know. The interesting thing in that is like this is his home in Bridgeport. I was like, he lives in Bridgeport? And then like 5 minutes later, somebody said the same. 3 other editors said, he lives in Bridgeport, because everybody has that stereotype of Bridgeport where there's nobody black lives in Bridgeport.
Well, like that stereotype's a little dated, but
I know. I still believe that.
I know. It's really hard for old timers like me.
Scared. Yeah. I was scared to go to Bridgeport the first time a friend of mine told me she lived there. She goes, "Do you live in Bridgeport?" She goes, "You'll be fine." She goes, "You don't have to worry about anything. You're not the minority they don't like here." And I was like, "That's what my friend told me."
How many years ago was this?
This was like early 2000s. I had a friend. She was an Italian American. We worked at City News together, and she moved to Bridgeport. And then I still had that. I still had that stereotype where I thought Bridgeport was really scary, because that maybe like when I started my job, it was that incident, Leonard Clark?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah,
like,
he was beat up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I that was my stereotype. I grew up thinking people who like the White Sox were automatically racist.
Yeah, okay, you got a lot of issues there with the White Sox. Still like the Cubs.
And then I realized all my friends who were Jewish at Niles West are like, "Oh, we're all Sox fans." I go, not all of them, but a few of them. One of our class vice president, who's now a judge, was telling me she was a White Sox fan. I'm like, "You like the White Sox?" I thought we all liked the Cubs. And she goes, "Well, my grandparents used to live in that area, and that's
some people like them both. Although I'm really having a very difficult time liking the Cubs these days. That's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Not just
we know
their owners.
It's very hard.
Yeah, make it very difficult, and they fired Joe Madden, which I think was so unfair.
I have a funny story about that, because a friend of mine whose husband was like, "I'm gonna boycott the Cubs. I love my family more," because he's Muslim, and this is a friend I grew up with since second grade. She just texted me earlier, and she goes, "Oh my God, we got a call from the Cubs. We might be able to get season tickets." And I'm like, "Wait, I thought your husband was
that boycott didn't last long."
And then she was all excited, and I go, "Wait, your husband just told me," was so like he was so angry about it, but they're fans, so like now they're like all excited. So I said, "Well, maybe Muslims will take over, and we'll just be Muslims at Wrigley Field."
Muslims, yeah, but since Joe Madden, it would just be Muslims at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, I was joking.
And Jewish people will be all White Sox Park. All right, now I promised at the start of the show that you were going to put on your editor's hat and edit President Trump's letter that he wrote.
That letter to the Turkish leader.
Yes, His Excellency. Dear Mr. President, this letter was written October 9th, 2019. Donald Trump. I think this was a case, obviously, where Donald Trump did something wrong. He was in trouble. So he wrote this letter to sort of like backdate it, make it seem like he didn't do what everybody thought, like he was being forceful with the president, as opposed to allowing Turkey just to take control of northeastern Syria. But here's what he wrote, and get your thoughts as an editor. We'll start with the first paragraph. Let's work out a good deal. With exclamation point. You don't want to be responsible for slaughtering thousands of people, and I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy, and I will.
The threat. It's always great to start your letter to another leader by threatening them.
Yeah.
And just saying, "Hey, let's do this," with the exclamation mark.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was going to write a letter to another leader, I would not use an exclamation mark.
What about exclamation marks in general as an editor? What's your attitude about it?
I do not think that we need exclamation marks. I've told some reporters, some who are my friends, and I'm like, you don't use exclamation marks.
Why?
I've told interns.
What's your attitude?
I just don't think, unless someone's like really screaming, do you really need exclamation mark? Like if somebody's yelling, yes, you need exclamation mark. But when someone says like a sentence, do you use exclamation mark? No, that's not how you talk. So that's how I try to explain to people. Like even because sometimes I've seen some reporters, obviously veteran reporters don't do that. These are usually people who aren't used to print, or I've seen it with a lot of interns, and it's just like it's such a boring sentence. They add an exclamation point, and I'm like, there's no way someone was that enthusiastic. So if somebody's screaming help and you want to emphasize that, then yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. Or an expletive where somebody's just screaming expletive and it's really passionate. Yeah, if there's no passion there, I don't think you need an exclamation mark. I guess Donald Trump does talk in exclamation marks.
Yeah, and also he's used to Twitter. I never use, or I should not say never, I very rarely use an exclamation mark in a article I'm writing or a column I'm writing, but I discovered that when I do when I'm texting somebody.
Do you use exclamation
marks? I don't know, some reason I
do. Sometimes I say, hey.
Yeah, hey, what
yay. You know, it's like.
Yeah, so.
But that's something else. It's like you're texting.
All right, here we go. I've worked hard to solve some of your problems going on with the letters. Second
bragging
paragraph.
about himself.
Yes, bragging. That's true. I've worked hard.
Yeah.
To solve some of your problems.
Yes.
Okay. Don't let the world down. Wow. Don't let the world down.
It's like he has all the world on his shoulder.
But I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, it's not funny.
It's not funny
Donald
at all.
Trump
I thought this was a joke when I saw this letter.
Told him he was pulling the soldiers so that Turkey could invade this area. Now he's saying, don't let the world down. You're the one to let the world down.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's a very serious subject. It's like so flip. That's how I feel with the letter, and it's just.
You can make a great deal.
It's just like his show. You're fired or whatever that show was, you know.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. you. It's up to you.
That's correct.
Thank you, Robert Mueller. General Maslow is willing to negotiate with you, and he is willing to make, I'm trying to read this, concessions that they would never have made in the past. Wow.
It's so like, there's like no detail. You know, it's like, I feel like this is a third grader writing this, but.
Well, do you think that's effective form of communication? Now think about this, because this is something. This is very Donald
I heard
Trump.
they threw it into the I heard when it got to Turkey, they threw it in the garbage. Like nobody even read it. That's what I heard. I was reading Al Jazeera, and that's what they said.
I see. Well, it must be true. My guess, this letter was not written so much for the president of Turkey.
Oh, you think it was written for the American public to show?
Fox TV. You know, like, this is how I talk.
Well, like someone on Twitter said, he was trying to make himself sound tough, so Fox, but people just laughed at the letter, right? And go ahead. Sorry.
All right, here's the grand conclusion. History will look upon you favorably if you get this done the right and humane way. Donald Trump talking about humane. It will. Okay, it's hard for me to read this. It will. Oh, there we go. It will look upon you forever as the devil if good things don't happen. Don't be a tough guy.
Don't be a fool.
Don't be a fool.
Talk to you later.
I will call you later.
Yeah.
It's freaking lunatic.
TTYL.
That's what I thought.
Come on, Rummana, that's crazy.
That's what people said they're going to. I saw a lot of people on Twitter said that's how they're going to sign their letters from now on. I can't believe this is the leader of our country. And I'm saying this as a reporter. I'm taking off my objectivity hat. I just can't believe that this is the way our leader is talking. Well, I don't know. We always laugh at other countries. I mean, does anybody even now we can't even laugh at anybody else.
This is one of my favorite conversations. I'm going to put on my objectivity hat. And your husband and my dear friend Mick Dumke would always discuss this. Can you objectively say that Donald Trump is out of his mind? When I look at this letter, I'm like, just be objective,
no.
America.
He is out of his mind. Yeah, he's not normal.
Right. He's not normal.
That's what I meant. No.
Yeah.
There's just, and I think as a journalist, I think you have to be critical. You have to be critical of the president, whoever it is, and to sit there and be objective about this or say that this is very normal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah.
At this point, the false equivalency doesn't apply. You know, it applies here. You can't say that, this guy's sane or, everything that he's proposing makes sense. You have to dissect it and show it to the world.
And then compare it to what the protocol was under every other president, whether you supported their proposals or programs, what have you. I was opponent of many of the presidents that preceded this one, but their behavior, just the behavior is just insane. That's about all I can say.
I don't know. I have some younger nephews and nieces.
Everybody's coming in early. I love it.
I have nephews and nieces who are 10, 11, and 2 twins that are like 7. I think they can write better than that. That's just my.
All right.
If I put them to.
I have David Faris on deck to bring him on. Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor's. Everybody's coming early. I love it. When they come, my guests come early on the Ben Joravsky Show. Before I let you go, your recommendations for the weekend.
I do want to see that movie Parasite. It's a Korean movie, from what I understand. It's about class. I think it dissects I think there's two families, one that's upper class and one that's lower class, and the families somehow converge together. Because I think some of the kids go to live in the rich family's house to take care of kids, I think, or to do some housework. But I heard it's very good. I've seen some reviews that said don't read too much about it, just go in and watch it.
Yes.
And I do want to see the Pedro Almodovar movie. What is it called again? Something
Pain and Glory.
Pain and Glory. Yeah.
2 thumbs way up for that.
Yes,
saw it
I
last
usually
weekend.
like his films. I think he does a good job, but I think this one's a little autobiographical.
Yes, it is.
So I do want to see that, and I'm interested in the Paul Rudd Netflix series. I forgot what it's called, where he gets a clone of himself, who's a better version of himself. He's kind of like stuck in life, and so then he gets this clone made of himself, and it's just kind of. He's more excited about life than he is and work. And so so far I've seen mostly good reviews, but I haven't read too much about it. So that might be something I'm going to watch.
Well, I'm definitely going to see
What about your
Parasite.
recommendations?
I will be at Parasite tomorrow. It looks like a great flick. It's scary and funny, and I have not read any of the reviews because I do not want. They always tell you what happens. They're like, "Well, I saw it. Well, who cares about you?" You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, thanks for nothing.
Usually if you read something online, they'll say spoilers.
Yeah, but a lot of these reviewers, they just sneak stuff in. Well, this happens, that happens.
Did you watch the Breaking Bad movie?
No, man. I know
you don't care.
I'm not.
But anyway, it was very popular. I think a lot of people saw it on Netflix. And one of the things they noticed, because they made this 6 years later, everybody aged. So they said, there's supposed to be a flashback. So they're like, well, okay, I don't know if that's a flashback. And one guy, he gained weight. So everybody was just like, he looks a little like Matt Damon. He's like a poor man. So they call him Meth Damon. That's the actor's name. He's married to Kirsten Dunst, by the way. But
oh yeah, I know that actor.
That actor, yeah,
he's really good. He was in Fargo.
Yeah,
big fella. He played the butcher.
I kind of felt bad for him because everybody's talking about how heavy he
looks
got.
Heavy. Yeah, Matt Damon's not looking that slender these days. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. Jeanette Taylor's nodding her head. Yeah, she agrees with me.
Anyway, thanks.
I just threw that on Jeanette. She doesn't agree with me on that. All right, Rummana Hussain, thank you so much. Appreciate everything you do for our show every Friday. Rummana Hussain, it's the Rummana Rundown. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We got David Faris on deck. We're going to bring him on when we return.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
No, it sounds infuriating because at least we get to have the truth, right? At least we should have the truth. One of the things that undergirds this process is integrity. And to say that you have offered a proposal that respects what we are asking for, to say that you've bent over backwards and it's the same proposal, not even, less than what's in there now, it's absolutely ridiculous.
The mayor said that the school district is still digging itself out of a fiscal hole. I mean, are you guys recognizing that the district still has financial problems?
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about the $1 billion of extra revenue that they're getting from the state of Illinois. Let's talk about that. Because that $1 billion is supposed to lower class size. That $1 billion is supposed to provide bilingual education supports. That $1 billion is supposed to provide us with nurses and social workers and counselors. That's what it's supposed to do. And it's awfully interesting to me that every time it comes to giving our students what they need in the Chicago Public Schools, which is a school district of 90% students of color, which is a school district that serves low-income students, that we talk about money. We don't talk about money when we build playgrounds for the wealthy in Lincoln Park, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in the entire world. Billions of dollars. Look around us right now. Count how many buildings down here were built with taxpayer money.
That's right.
Count them. And then we're here begging and pleading. You saw our counselor last night crying for resources for our students. And we are in one of the richest cities, and one of the richest countries in the whole world, where taxpayers have subsidized the development of skyscrapers but cannot give black children on the south side a lower class size. Next question.
Speaking of percentages,
Speaking of percentages, what percentages of affordable housing aren't in city ordinance right now? Speaking of percentages, how many black people still live in this city and can't live here reasonably because the city tore down all of the affordable housing? And the mayor said that one of the pillars of her administration would be to deal with poverty, to deal with equity, to make sure that people had an affordable place to live. This isn't about today. Contracts represent a vision of the future. It represents where we're going, not where we are currently. And so if we're going to build a city that responds to equity, that responds to justice, that responds to all of what she promised us, then this contract, as we have presented it to them for the last 10 months, we should not be talking about a strike. We should be talking about a settlement. We should be having a celebratory press conference and moving the city forward.
Sounds like you're trying to dictate some public policy.
I'm a taxpayer. I'm a mother. I am invested in Chicago. Voters in this city call shots. Taxpayers in this city call shots. They call shots for these buildings down here. They call shots for that wealthy playground in Lincoln Park. We get to call shots for our public schools. You're absolutely right. This is not an autocracy. This is a democracy.
Holy crap, Stacey Davis Gates is cool. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, October 18th is moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and of course, today's Ben Joravsky show was brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Friday, October 18th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, it's the return of our good friend, professor and author David Faris, and we welcome back 20th Ward Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. And now your host, not a professor or an alderman, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
We've got two powerhouses in the studio. David Faris, a political science professor at Roosevelt University, author of the book It's Time to Fight Dirty. It's this call to arm to Democrats, stop being wimps, and start playing the game the way Republicans play it. And here, bright and early, I cannot wait to bring her on, Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor, the pride and joy of the 20th Ward. She's going to tell it like she already told me what she's going to say, and I know a lot of listeners are eagerly waiting for Jeanette to come on. But first, David Faris. Welcome back, David.
It's great to be here, Ben. Do you know what today is?
Other than Friday?
It is the 1001st night of the Trump administration.
Wow, man, I hadn't been keeping track.
Yeah.
Wow.
1001 nights, man.
It's like a bad dream.
What a buzzkill you are,
yeah,
Faris.
Really. Oh, thanks for stopping in. Makes me feel...
1,000 days of being governed by the stupidest and most hateful people in the entire world. I'm really enjoying it.
Would you... The stupidest? Don't you think there's some kind of like... there's got to be this like raw intelligence of basic... I mean, he did get elected...
it's like sort of, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in any sane system, he would not actually have been elected because in most societies, the people with the most votes take office and the people with fewer votes go home, play golf, stupid resorts.
Absolutely correct.
President.
As David Faris is pointing out, Donald Trump did not win the popular vote in the last election, and yet because of the insane system we have determining who gets to be president, our electoral system, he got to be president. And David Faris, this is a point he makes in his book, It's Time to Fight Dirty. Make it again one more time. Folks may not have heard it. If Republicans were in charge and they had lost 2 presidential elections, along with it the power to appoint Supreme Court judges and fill other judiciary vacancies, if they had lost all of that with the power to control regulations of our markets and our environment, etc., in 2000, as the Democrats did when Al Gore won the popular vote but lost the electoral vote, and 2016 when Hillary Clinton, how would Republicans respond if the shoe was on the other foot?
So yeah, I think about 25 states would have seceded. and/or like every Republican on earth would have been just like camped out in Capitol Hill until Hillary Clinton left office because she's illegitimate for losing the popular vote. Like they would not have just been like, oh well, those are the rules,
Yeah.
gotta hand the most powerful office in the world to this idiot. I'm sorry. Those are the rules of our democracy.
When you view how Democrats play the game as opposed to Republicans play the game, have you come to any conclusions as to why Democrats are so wimpy? I don't know if I've ever asked you this direct question before, all the times you've been on our show. So I'm asking you now, is there, in your humble opinion, a reason why the Democrats are so wimpy?
Yeah. I mean, so I think that traditionally Democrats think of themselves as the party of good government, right? Like of the two parties, one of them believes in government and the things that it can do for our society, and the other one despises government and wants to do everything in its power to destroy it. And so when Democrats come back into power, one of the things that I think that they remain committed to is making government work the way it's supposed to work. And so sort of like nonstop procedural escalation is not necessarily anybody's idea of like what ideal good governance would look like. And so it's been very hard. It's been like a long project to get more and more Democrats to see that they can't keep committing themselves to these like sort of dead norms and archaic practices that characterized the House and the Senate 30, 40 years ago, that they have to adjust to this new reality, and they don't like it because they don't like doing these things because they're good people, and they don't want to like trick their opponents into not showing up for a vote, for instance, as they did in North Carolina over the summer. So I think it's like a tougher sell for them because people go to DC. Most people go to DC for a reason. They want to they have policy ideas. They want to get those things enacted, and they don't want to think of themselves as people who are part of like a tit for tat escalation of American politics. But there's a certain point at which it's like, come on, like wake up, wake up.
Well, I have a different theory. I'm going to try it out on you because I study Democrats as they behave on the local scene as much as I study Democrats as they behave on the national scene. And when I take a look at Democrats on the local scene in the city council with our mayor, they are just they don't care about not playing dirty. They don't care about if they violate the rules or the protocol. When Rahm wanted that vote, it's on the to finance the TIF deal, the Hyatt Hotel and the DePaul basketball arena. He didn't even tell people they were voting for it. It was a roll call vote. And the aldermen didn't even know what they were voting for. It was coming out of a housing committee bill. They only learned like after the fact that they had just approved TIF funding for a hotel or a basketball arena. But when I look at Democrats, the same Democrats, when they go to Washington, they don't fight the Republicans like they fight independents and black people in the city of Chicago. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like they have different rules. Sure. It's like, well, we got to play by the rule. But you never play by the rules in the city of Chicago. But when they get to there's something going on when they get to Washington.
Yeah, I think there's actually something going on here, which is that I think traditionally Democrats in Chicago have regarded themselves as the de facto rulers of a one-party state, and they, up until recently, I don't think they really have ever had to fear turning power over to people that might oppose them or strip them of their power or pass different kinds of policies. That's I'm not the local expert here, but it does seem like that's starting to change a little bit. But I think your Rahm Democrats have run Chicago for a couple of generations now, and I think had no fear that their escalations would ever be like kind of thrown back at them.
Challenge them. Yeah. You've wrote a very interesting column. Let's go through some of the columns that you wrote recently for the week. One has to do with the Democratic candidates for president and their attitudes toward impeachment. And you contrasted their attitudes toward impeachment with the Democrats in Congress, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Congress who are moving ahead with the impeachment inquiry. Talk about the differences.
Well, so I mean, if you watched the debate on Tuesday night, the first question was about impeachment. And I thought that they all kind of struck out on it. I mean, so everybody said they were in favor of it. Tulsi Gabbard was like, oh, I guess so, But everybody was like, we should do this. We should do this inquiry. And they all use this same set of cliches. The president should not be above the law. Like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, is there anybody on earth that can do either of those things? That can't walk and chew gum at the same time? Like, if you can walk or you can chew gum, you could do them both. It's the stupidest cliche.
Yeah.
But I think what was absent from their responses, given they only have 75 seconds because there's like 400 of them up on stage. But they didn't give any details about what the president did wrong. They didn't give any details about what he actually did in Ukraine, which is he extorted them, right? They haven't given any details about like why it's wrong. The president keeps directing business to his own resorts, right? Like, they have to get up there and they have to be able to prosecute that case, because I think Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, God love them, are not very good at this at all. Pelosi is a behind doors strategist. I think she's very good at it. I also don't think she's a great public speaker. I don't think she's great at pressing a sort of a narrative about this. The less we say about Chuck Schumer, the better. Please go away. You've been
consistent on that for as long as I've known you.
Yeah, he's like a dorky old dad, you know, which is fine. But like, we need a ruthless partisan, and not your not the guy making jokes at Thanksgiving dinner. So I really want to hear the 2020 Democrats be able to, in sound bites, in short sound bites. That's all you ever get, right? Yeah. You got to be able to say, like, this is what he did, this is why it's illegal, this is why we got to take him out, this is why it's corrupt, and sort of tie all of those things together to what I think is the biggest problem with the Trump administration, which is that there's a bunch of like gangster oligarchs like running loose in Washington, D.C. from the guy that promised to drain the swamp. And instead of swamp draining, what we got is just like a sort of unprecedented expansion of corruption in Washington, D.C., and it's now fanning out into all the states, and it's not working for ordinary people.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is classic David Faris. You're hearing this. Let's just break down your analysis for a moment. Put it in the context of what's going on in Washington. Again, the name of his book is It's Time to Fight Dirty. Democrats should sort of emulate Republicans in how they play the game, because it's a game, it's a political fight. And there's another side that wants to win something. Now, the Democrats, you're saying they should be more ruthless partisans in this impeachment inquiry. And then yet the Democrats are bending over backwards, David, to be as fair as they possibly can be, to look as fair as Adam Schiff, who is the congressman from California who's overseeing the impeachment inquiry, is saying we're playing by all the rules. Mm-hmm. We haven't reached a conclusion. Before we hang them, and et cetera and so forth. And meanwhile, the Republicans just come right back and they call them ruthless partisans. They say it's a coup, So the Democrats are like determined to prove that they're not the things that the Republicans say they are, and yet you advocate they should just be what the Republicans say they are.
Well, they should fight as ruthlessly as they can under the law, right? And so what makes my head explode about this is that they're like, well, we're abiding by the rules of the House, and it's like, dude, you set the rules of the House, right? The House sets its own rules. That's what's in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution about committees. There's nothing in the Constitution about like anybody from the minority party has to have any seats on anything, right? None of it. It doesn't say anything about impeachment. It's just like the House sets its own rules. Do whatever you want, right? And so the idea that we have to abide by a set of House rules that Mitch McConnell has changed 1,000 times in the Senate is preposterous. Now, I mean, you want to make sure there's an advantage to changing the rules, right? You don't want to just like change them for no particular reason. You want to change them to wrong foot your opponents. And so what is puzzling to me in the House, the energy that I get from Democrats is you're like, well, we got to do this as quickly as possible. We're going to impeach him over Ukraine, get it done by the end of November. Obviously, he'll then be acquitted in the Senate, and then we can just get on with the business of talking about what we wanted to talk about before all of this happened, which I think is an insane strategy. I think if Democrats were smart, they would drag this out for the next 11 months, take a month per article of impeachment, okay, and then send the articles of impeachment over to the Senate the day before the election. Okay? What's to stop them from doing that?
What's the advantage of doing that?
Well, the advantage is that he can't get acquitted in the Senate, right? So if you drag it out until election day, hold hearings, put all the evidence out there, make him twist. He's going crazy, right? Like he's
crazy.
He's lost his mind.
Yeah,
he's like the guy in Back to the Future when he's like, "Did you call me chicken?" Like, "Did you call me chicken?" What's that? He has
lost his mind. I agree with you. Yeah.
He's like Biff from. He really is like Biff from Back to the Future because the character was based on him.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe not everybody's seen this movie.
No,
but,
it is, by the way, a very bizarre movie.
And a very popular movie back then.
It was popular, but it's a really weird movie, which we will not spend any time discussing how weird Back to the Future is, but continue with your point.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think a lot of the strategists, but before Pelosi got on board with impeachment, people were like, you got to do this. Like, it'll drive him so crazy. He'll act like a total maniac. Now, on one hand, he could get us all killed if we drive him too crazy, right? Yeah. But he's acting in ways that are so self-destructive, so sort of like transparently insane that it's obviously working, right? So every minute that impeachment goes on is another minute that he's going to be like, I want to hold the G7 at my resort, right? Like, what, like, okay, well, I've got another article of impeachment. That's great. Good job. Knucklehead. You know what I mean? So I don't understand the rush to wrap this up. I think that this is a public relations coup for the Democrats. You got 52, 53, 54% of Americans back the impeachment inquiry. I don't think that's going to change. The more people learn about what happened here and the more these idiots admit it in public. Mick Mulvaney, the chief of staff, went out in front of the cameras yesterday, was like, yeah, we did it. Did it all the time. It's like one of those, it's like the like a Law and Order episode. Yeah. Where they get crooked and sideways and they're like, did you do it?
Yeah.
And they're like, I did it, I'm sorry. Gong gong, right?
Yeah.
So why wrap this all up early? Just drag it out. Make him twist in the wind, Stab him a little bit, leave it in there.
And to your point, there's no shortage.
I don't mean that literally.
Evidence. Yeah, he's speaking figuratively, ladies and gentlemen. There's no shortage of evidence of Donald Trump wrongdoing. It's like every day there's another revelation of Donald Trump doing something that is completely beyond the norm. Just for the moment, let's just talk about that. He invited the world leaders to come to his resort, to stay at his resort. So it'll be money in his pocket. Yep. And here we are in Illinois. Like, we try to play by these rules in Illinois. We're a very corrupt state, very corrupt city, David Faris. But there's always ongoing investigations, and people are always shocked and outraged by, some guy taking money for this, that, or the other thing, and getting a piece of like a red light camera deal or something. But here's the president of the United States just openly, you come stay at my resort, I'll make money off the deal.
I mean, his slogan for next year should just be pay to play. Right? I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That used to be an insult in politics, right? Another pay-to-play politician. Now it's just like that's what the president is. He doesn't even try to hide it.
And yet,
it's crazy.
Let's get to this. His base remains loyal. I've been talking a lot about the New York Times podcast where they followed a congresswoman to southern Michigan. She came, I don't know if you saw that, Slotkin is her name. She's a centrist. She won in a district that went for Trump. She's a rookie, and she came to face her constituents at a series of town hall meetings right after she had come out in favor of impeachment inquiry, and she came face to face with some Trumpsters who accused her of engineering a coup against the president, and said they saw no evidence that he'd ever done anything wrong, and that the Democrats were just trying to engineer a coup because they didn't like how the election went down in 2016. So from the David Faris point of view, should we not care about people like that? What's the David Faris attitude about voters like that?
I mean, I think voters who are like dressed up in a red MAGA hat and go to the rallies and are like, he never did anything wrong, he's our God Emperor. Those voters are lost to us. You know what I mean? We're not getting those people back because they're impervious to evidence. But I think the bigger picture thing here is to understand sort of how the right-wing universe works. I think there's like 3 or 4 key outlets in that universe: Fox News, Breitbart. There's this mysterious publication called The Federalist. And what those organizations do is they take the administration's talking points, they launder them through a film of legitimacy, and then they send those talking points out to the people that watch those shows. And so whatever Trump says, it was actually Hillary in Ukraine that hacked their... Can we take a second?
Go.
So the conspiracy theory is that the Clinton campaign hacked its own computers and then blamed it on the Russians to get Trump in trouble so that he would lose the election, right? And then they took the server and they hid it in Ukraine. First of all, it's not how servers work, okay? It's not how the technology works. You don't just be like, gotta hide it, put it in a closet, guys. Yeah. Why would they do that? Why would she hack her own email and release this like endless string of like damaging emails up to the day of the election? Like they were all sitting around and be like, what would be really good is if we got caught on an email talking bad about Bernie. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, let's do that. It's so crazy. But the way that the right-wing misinformation universe works is that it's directed from the top. The audience gets their marching orders, and because there's still, I think, a residual trust in any media outlet that you get yourself into, you're like, well, they can't all be lying to me, right? It's created this like sort of closed information loop, and it's very hard to break that. And so the people that are already at the rallies, they're gone. You know what I mean? If we're going to flip people, ironically, it's the lowest information voters out there who are the most likely to change teams between an election. This is based on work done by a political scientist up at, actually she's out there, she's at University of Maryland now, Liliana Mason.
What is this theory?
So we looked at the data. She looked at the data of how people who changes their votes in between elections. So you go with a Obama-Trump vote, the famous Obama-Trump voter.
Yeah.
Okay. The Obama-Trump voter is not people like you and me, right? Who are like, well, I know
obsessed
you don't like Twitter, but like, we're all day, every day with the politics.
Yeah.
They're the kind of people that are like, in August of an election year, they're like, hey, do you hear there's an election? Who are you going to vote for? I don't know.
Actually, just to correct you, it's generally considered after Labor Day. That's like the key. So it's not even August of the election. It's September, whatever, the day after Labor. Well, that's when I'll start paying attention.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Honestly, maybe these people are a lot healthier than we are. I don't know. But probably a lot healthier, a lot happier. They have like nicer children. I don't know. They garden. They have hobbies, right? Like, I don't have hobbies. I don't have a life. Like, this is like national emergencies. It's nonstop for 4 years. Okay. But those are the people that might change their votes.
Yeah.
And so, and this is why I think Democrats are making a big mistake if they want to wrap up impeachment so quickly, because they have to keep impeachment alive as an issue until the sort of the lower information, disconnected, independent voters who are perfectly willing to move from Trump back to whoever the Democrats nominate. There's not that many of these people, okay? But
there's
like
very few.
5% of the electorate maybe, but they're really critical. And so I think if you wrap up the impeachment inquiry, and then in September you're like, let's go back to talking about the wealth tax or healthcare or whatever. I don't know that you're going to get those people. Like, I don't think you're going to convince those people that the president is corrupt if you've already closed the file in January, 11 months before you start reaching those voters.
Well, you're making some compelling arguments. I can just hear a Democrat in a swing district under so much pressure, to get it overdone, going against what you're saying, but you're making a compelling case from a political standpoint. Let's get into some of the policy issues, something we talk a lot about on this show. I don't think I've had this conversation with you because I don't know if you've been on since the debates began, but I was just talking about this with Candace Castillo just the other day, as a matter of fact. Listening to the candidates for president articulate against health care for all. There's like 4 of them that were in the debates articulating against health care for all and realizing, follow me this, David, that I forget what the percentage is, over 80%, something like that, of Democratic voters want Medicare for all. So we have candidates for president running in a Democratic primary who thinks it's in the party's best interest to articulate a plan that over 80% of their people who vote, the most loyal voting Democrats, don't want. If that's not the definition of a party that wants to lose, I don't know what it is. So please help explain what's going on here. What's the rationale here?
Well, first, I mean, it's really demented. I mean, you have Michael Bennett, Colorado senator, spending millions of dollars right now running ads against Medicare for all. Hey, Michael Bennett is not going to be the president of the University of Colorado, let alone the president of the United States. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not going to happen. And he's just wasting his own money, and he's driving negativity into this issue for Democrats. And I don't understand why he's doing it. Beyond that, I mean, in a primary like this, all 12 of those candidates agree about a lot of things, right? They agree about the Iran deal. They agree about probably trade. Maybe not trade, but they agree about a lot. And healthcare is a place where they can differentiate themselves. Because if you're Amy Klobuchar, if you're Pete Buttigieg, you're who's the other moderate that's not Biden?
Who was on the stage?
Who was on the stage? Was there one? I don't know who it was. Maybe Steyer. Okay.
Yeah.
Also never going to be president.
Yeah. I'm looking at Candace. Just had a mental block on all the.
There's too many. There's just Beto. Okay.
Beto. How can I forget Beto? Yeah,
Beto.
He's another moderator. He goes, you can't go too fast on this.
Right, exactly. When we're so close to getting things done, it's like we're not close to getting anything done. What are you guys idiots talking about?
Yeah.
I think what's happening here is that the the leading moderator in the race is Biden. Okay, and Biden can barely get a sentence out without stumbling on his words, or like forgetting somebody's name, or being like, "We should shoot for the moon like Kennedy." It's like how old are you? Jesus. So, you know, he's obviously not up to the task, right?
Yeah.
Like he seems like by hour 3 of that debate, I was like, all this dude is dreaming about is like putting his dentures into some Alka-Seltzer and slipping away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he does not want to be there. He's too old. He cannot handle it. It's a funny thing. He's younger than Bernie, but Bernie's had a heart attack. Bernie looks like he could run 11,000 circles around Joe Biden day and
a miracle
night,
about
you know?
Bernie Sanders. Yeah.
And when Biden's like, "I'd beat him like a drum," I'm like, I don't really think that you would. You know, I just don't.
I don't know. Trump versus Biden.
Trump is a big man.
He's big, but he's kind of flabby, man. I don't know. Biden, he's quick. I don't know. I can't imagine
that's what Biden wants us to believe is that he's quick, limber, you know, like Joey Amtrak, you know, from
that's the last word I'll associate with that guy. Quick.
So anyway, I think that people smell some blood in the water with Biden, right? And it's not just the Biden, the Hunter Biden stuff. It's that he just seems out of it. And I think the more people see that, they're going to be like this guy. We're going to put this guy up for like 8 hours against Trump in a debate in October with basically the entire planet on the line.
Yeah.
I don't think so, man. So I think the calculation is that Biden's going to fade, or he's going to lose a couple of the early states, and he's going to go away.
Yeah.
And that's going to open up space in the race for somebody that takes up that ideological position. And so you've got Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Steyer, Bennett, all lobbying to be that person. And that's why Pete has gone from like, you know, inspirational, you know, like they're gonna go after us no matter what we say. Why don't we just say what we believe? To being like, you know, we gotta be pragmatic. And I'm like, who are you? He's just a McKinsey consultant. Go away.
Yeah.
And
Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete, go away. Please go away. Please go as far away as possible.
Yeah.
And so I think the most plausible person out there right now to take Biden's space in the race is Klobuchar. To be honest with you, she's got the like Midwest charm. She's got the moderate record. She can be like, look, all the Trumpy people voted for me in the last election, and she can say a sentence, which is more than you can say for Biden at this point.
Yeah, no, Klobuchar can say, give her that. All right, now, not to put you in the spot, but in this studio, to my right, are two people. One supports Bernie Sanders, and the other supports Elizabeth Warren. So I'm going to put it to you right now. So no matter what you say, you're going to offend one of these two people. No,
thanks for coming back, David.
Yeah. Well, that's right. There's another Bernie Sanders supporter in here. So it's like actually 2-1. Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, make the case for either of them.
I mean, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. No, I think, you know, I have promised not to make an endorsement. Not that I'm famous enough that my endorsement, anybody cares about it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I've promised to actually just consider the issue until I have to vote.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I'm a lean Warren voter, okay? So if the election were tomorrow and you put a gun to my head, I would vote for Elizabeth Warren.
Now, why are you leaning toward Elizabeth Warren?
I think that obviously she shares a lot of the policy space with Bernie Sanders. I think that she's better capable of uniting the party behind her as she moves into a general election. That to me is the key difference in terms of the data that we see about how people feel about the candidates. You ask them about their second choices. Morning Consult has been asking this question of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Democratic primary voters for months now. And that's like, who would you be most disappointed if they won the nomination? Okay. Biden's way up. You know, the idiots are first, right? It's like Marianne Williamson. Obviously, we would all be very disappointed if Marianne Williamson won the primary. Tulsi, I heard that you interviewed her.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard's up there. Yeah. You know, like the people, John Delaney. But you know, Bernie's
is he still running?
Allegedly, I don't know. He's running from reality. If he's still running, you know what I mean? And he's not. He's losing.
You were on fire today, David Faris, man. The views and opinions of David Faris do not necessarily reflect the Ben Joravsky Show.
That's correct.
Don't represent Roosevelt University either.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So anyway, I adore both of these candidates. I like to say that I have emotional voting tiers. Okay, like joyfully, Warren and Sanders. Happily, I don't know at this point, Booker. Dutifully, Harris, Klobuchar, you know, all the dumb moderates. Resentfully, Mayor Pete at this point, and then bitterly it'd be like Gabbard and Williamson and Delaney and all the, you know. Okay. So it's like,
and where's Joe Biden and all that? that's a great breakdown. I'm going to steal it. And use
Biden
it.
started off as dutifully and has like descended into resentfully.
Okay.
Because he's such a jerk. You know, in addition to being old and mealy mouthed and incompetent.
Yeah.
He's a jerk. I don't like him.
Okay.
So anyway, I would joyfully vote for either Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. That's all I
Well,
have to
it's
say.
been way too long since you've been here, and I'm going to include you with Candace is nodding her head. We do a regular segment with Candace and Samina Mustafa. We spend about an hour breaking down the debates, so we'll make sure this guy's in here in
I would love to do that.
November. Is live. Well, you two very smart people, all sort of on the left, I would say. In that room, I have to sort of pretend like I'm the Biden supporter in the room.
That must wear on your soul. Are you going to be okay?
It's all right. You know, I voted for. I admit it. 2 times, only 2 times in my life have I faced the name Biden on a ballot, and each time I voted for him. Just saying it, folks.
That's right.
In 2008, he was the vice presidential candidate to Barack Obama. I voted for him. In 2012, he was the vice president. I voted for him. So it would be kind of hypocritical for me, David, to say, I hate Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't hate him. I prefer him to Trump, but
I definitely prefer him to Trump. All right, David Faris is his name. He's a Roosevelt University political science professor. I urge everybody to check out his book, It's Time to Fight Dirty. He tells it like it is in terms of advocating to the Democrats that they should stop rolling over and let Republicans walk all over them and start to use the Republican tactics against the Republicans and stop worrying about whether the Republicans say, oh, you're being unfair. Because I've never seen a Republican back off from doing something being unfair. And also check them out. Your column in The Week, is that correct?
Yeah.
You're cranking them out, dude. You're like writing one a day.
yeah, it's been a lot lately. It's been a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot
of
on.
news to commentate about.
How can they get a hold of that? The columns?
It's just theweek.com. You'll see me in one of 3 or 4 top articles there usually. Or go to my website. It's blogs.roosevelt.edu/dfaris.
Oh, that's a lot.
I know.
We leave that.
Yeah.
We'll put it on our Facebook
Just go to my
page.
Twitter.
David Faris. And next on deck, as we've been promising all day, 20th Ward Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. This is another person who's not afraid to speak her mind, and she's ready to go. We'll bring her on when we return.
So this idea is a bunch of malarkey.
Guys, you all cool with him? Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Today, in my last council meeting as mayor, it is the words of another baseball great that ring in my ear. 80 years ago, Lou Gehrig said, "Today I feel like the luckiest man on the face of the earth." Let me be clear, our work is not finished. I am in this job for another month, and if you know me, which you do, you know that I will make the most of every hour of every day from here to the end. But on this occasion of our last council meeting together, allow me to say that the opportunity to serve with you, to serve the people of the city of Chicago, the greatest city in the greatest country on earth, the most American of American cities, has truly been the highest honor of my career. And because of that, today, I feel like the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Thank you.
Well, good riddance. Today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. They're located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago. And people, I got to say, it's the best thrift store I've ever been to in my life. I know they're sponsors of the show, but it's true. It's located right on Broadway between Granville and Devon. You go there, you'll find all kinds of items. Antiques, lamps, clothes, furniture, toys, board games. The other day we went over the list of board games. Oh, there's Clue. I see Clue right now. I'm looking at pictures from greenelementresale.com. The Game of Life, right up there. They're all used games. Are all the pieces in them? I don't know, but you go to Green Element Resale right now, you find out, all right? If you get them with all pieces, boy, you get a board game for like $3. Pictionary. Yeah, that's Pictionary. And okay, nobody gets Categories. That's mine. That's my favorite game, all right? Someone stole my Categories a few months back. I got to get it back. So, okay, that one's mine. But you can get Upwards and all kinds of excellent games at Green Element Resale. GreenElementResale.com, 773-942-6522 if you ever need to call them up for some reason. Their hours Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. Sunday, 12 until 7 p.m. Green Element Resale. Go there, save money. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Taylor with me, Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor from the 20th Ward. Welcome back to the show,
Thank
Jeanette.
you for having me. I always enjoy coming and hang out with you.
It is a blast talking politics with Alderwoman Taylor. Before we do that, do you got an update for me?
Absolutely, I do. A few updates here. First off, let's go over to the YouTube live stream and see what the people are saying here. Let's see. We got someone who weighed in. Oh, Jay Marie weighed in. Hey, Jay Marie, how's it going? Jay Marie says, so disappointed. Ben does not like Breaking Bad. That's what we learned here earlier. Doesn't like Breaking Bad. Lost cool points. And he voted for Lori, too. Tisk, tisk.
I did vote for Lori. Jeanette's like, what? I did, Jeanette. I'm not going to lie, okay?
I won't hail Washington.
Hey, show her that thing. It's pretty cool, right?
No.
3D print. All right, so if you want to weigh in on the YouTube live stream chat, go ahead and do so on the YouTube page. We may read your comments. Speaking of reading your comments, we got to wrap up our caption contest this week. Earlier in the week, we reached 2,100 likes.
Wait, time out. So we're going to announce a winner today?
We're going to announce the winner like right now.
Wait, shouldn't we allow Jeanette Taylor to pick the winner?
Oh, okay. Well, there's not many of them.
All right, okay.
And yeah, we should have prepared that.
Yeah, we should have prepared that. I didn't think of that. It's my fault.
Well, let's go ahead and announce some of these captions that we had here. Quite a few you captioned. Thank you so much for weighing in on the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page. The picture begging for your caption is one of Alderman Ed Burke and Donald Trump. President Donald Trump is talking to Ed Burke. They both look like weirdos. So let's read the captions here. Thank you, everybody who sent them in. Let's see here. Carol weighed in. Once again, picture Donald Trump talking to Ed Burke. Carol says, hey, Eddie, I heard the feds raided your offices and you're now defending an indictment. Yeah, Donnie, I heard they were... Oh, wait, no, this is...
Wait, that's Ed Burke.
This is Ed Burke. Yeah, I don't know what he sounds like. Yeah, Donnie, I heard they were coming to your place next. There's that one. I don't know if he sounds anything like that. All right, and let's see. We'll do a few more here. Let's see. We got Layla. Layla weighed in. She said, this is Trump talking to Ed Burke. Hey, just don't cooperate and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's advice. Ed Burke wishes Danny Solis had followed.
Shout out to Wally. Wally weighed in. He said, hey, Ed Burke, you know your hair can look like this too.
He just combing over that way.
Yeah, They both got goofy hairdos, guys. All right, and let's see here. She says, Kathy weighs in. She's doing, remember we've mentioned that Alderman Ed Burke shook down a Burger King in his ward.
That's correct.
Not the nicest fella in the world, but Kathy weighs in. She says, you should have picked McDonald's, Eddie. No whistle blowing there.
Yeah.
Very good. Let's see here. Frank Coconati weighed in.
Oh, Coconati weighed in. What did Frank have to say? My old friend.
All right, I just got to make sure. I got to proofread Coconati.
Proofread it. It's no
all right,
expletives.
Frank, this is Donald Trump talking to Ed Burke here. It says, hey, Eddie, how much did it cost you to pay off Michael Sneed at the Sun-Times?
All right, that's not. All right, no, hey. It's Coconati letting you know he doesn't like the
Coconati
Sun-Times.
Being Coconati.
Yeah.
All right, and let's see here. And we're going to announce our winner right now for the first time in Ben Joravsky Show history. Back-to-back caption contest winner. His name's Paul.
Oh, all right. What did
Paul had the best one here. Once again, Donald Trump talking to Ed Burke. Donald Trump says, wait, were you saying grab him by the purse strings?
Yeah, I remember that one, yeah. You know what?
Really good.
So the check for $100,000 is in the mail. Isn't that what we're giving away?
I mean, you can pretend that. That's fine.
Okay, it's in the mail. All right, thank you very much, Paul, for that great caption. Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor. And we've been talking so much about the teacher strike. So I'll just start with this. The Chicago Tribune, I dutifully read the Chicago Tribune today, said we as a civilization cannot afford to pay for more nurses, more social workers and counselors. I'm just saying what they said. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Can we, the city of Chicago, afford to pay for more social workers, counselors, and nurses in our public schools, particularly schools in neighborhoods like yours?
Of course we can. We spend $931 million on administration, and if I pay my ticket at the city clerk's office, I still have to go up to the 7th floor to the Department of Finance to let them know I paid, because those departments don't work together. So we could afford it. We're not broke, and they're full of shit. That's what this is. My lived experience, I saw 52 kindergarten in a classroom.
I remember that.
My special needs son was a child that got his services under the stairs. I saw that the gym room was too overcrowded to eat lunch in, and kids took their lunch to a classroom. And so don't give me that crap about what we can't afford. How do you explain to parents whose kids are diabetic that they see a nurse once a week? And so you train some office staff or somebody who is usually the clerk, which my mother was for 30 years, to do an injection. She's not a nurse. She's not qualified to do that. She's not even certified to do it, but we allow it to happen. And in Chicago, we all know it's because of the kids we're talking about serving. This is black and white. Ain't no damn gray area. This is about serving black and Latino communities. We know that the 50 school closings happened on the south and west sides. And who lives on the south and west side, Ben? Black and brown children. So don't give me that crap about we can't afford it. Yes, we can. When we make young people the priority, it shouldn't matter what side of town you live on. A quality education is a must. It happened. I'm an 80s baby. I didn't know the difference. I had a good quality school. I had teachers who loved me. I saw the nurse every day. We had a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Anytime something happened, those people surrounded us, which too often didn't happen in our communities. And so the thought that it's this issue now, 42 West Madison needs to do what it used to do best back in the day, and that was paperwork.
As opposed to?
Worrying about what your data, because they love saying that.
Yeah.
What your spreadsheet says. My child is not a spreadsheet. My child is a person who deserves to have people who come out and evaluate the schools properly and say that this is what's missing and this is what's needed.
Yeah. And we also played a clip earlier today, Janice Jackson from the head of the Chicago Public Schools went on, I think, was it Fox? Was it Fox TVD?
Yeah, Fox 32.
She said, we can't afford that. That's a direct quote.
Tell her to take a pay cut then. She makes enough. She used to be a teacher. She used to be a principal. She knows better. I had a run-in with her when she was the network chief. We as parents wanted our students to opt out of the park test, which didn't do anything and just gave money to their friends. And when we opted out, her and her folks threatened to suspend young people. What they didn't realize that the kids they were threatening, their parents actually are parents who participate. Because, as black and brown parents, let them tell her we don't participate. But I've only been on the local school council 22 years. And so I didn't believe Janice was the right person to go in that space. She's there because she's a black woman, and that's supposed to make me feel comfortable. It don't. I don't care if she black, white, green, or purple. Her ass is wrong. She is wrong in all. Cut some of them salaries downtown. The state has given CPS more money. CPS is too busy worrying about making its well-off constituents happy and saying the hell with the rest of us. So she could save that. I don't believe nothing she say. She a waste of time. And Lori is crazy for keeping her on. Pick your own person. We need somebody in that space who cares about young people, not young people whose parents have money.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is that I live on the north side. And in the early days, when this strike talk was just ramping up, people would come up to me. They know where I stand on things, Jeanette, and they would say, it was just a repeat of 2012, but can't you get your girl, because they always think like I somehow control Stacey Davis Gates, like anybody can tell Stacey Davis Gates. They used to say, can't you get your girl Karen Lewis to XYZ, fall in line. And so my sense of things was that on the north side, and maybe I'm just bumping into the wrong people, is that most of the voters or the people on the north side, residents on the north side, were with Lori. What's your sense about how it plays? I've since come around to think maybe I was just running into the wrong people. What's your sense about how it plays in your neck of the woods, the 20th Ward, which is the Woodlawn area, just south of Hyde Park, etc.? What's your sense about how most of your constituents view this showdown between the Chicago Teachers Union and Mayor Lori Lightfoot?
They understand, and while they can't afford not to go to work and not have their kids not go to school and have a safe space to be to learn, they truly understand and they support the teachers. It's righteous. How do kids take gym online? Do they do that in the white community?
No, I've never heard of gym online.
Oh, the kids at Diet took it. How about some kids don't even have gym?
Gym online?
Gym online. That's what the kids were at Diet going through before it closed in that last 2 years of the phase out.
That's right.
They were taking gym. Who in the hell takes gym online?
How do you even do gym online?
You click a button and say, did you do 5 push-ups, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't make common sense to me either. And so I ask people all the time, does a white mother want something different than a black mother wants for their child? To be educated, to be in a safe place, to make sure that they have all the things to me to make them a productive adult? The answer is no. We want the exact same thing no matter what color you are. The difference is that white mother gets more of an ear of the people in power because she has money. She's seen it value. I'm not. I used to feel like a voiceless black mother in CPS because they did not listen. And too often you got to cuss and go out and be said you the black woman with the attitude. So what? I'm 44 years old. I'm in full menopause, and the person that can hold me back is my mother, and she died in January this year. So to hell with all of them.
Yeah.
I'm speaking truth to power, and it's righteous for the teachers and the seekers and the park districts for them all to be out. It's a shame that the park district got people who've been there since they're 18 and they don't even make $17 an hour. In what type of world is that?
Yeah.
That's righteous? That's okay? No. We got to get to a space where we call out bullshit when it is.
Yeah.
And the Sun-Times and the Tribune, they wrong on this one. I'm sorry. They just, hell, they didn't pick me the first round. Wasn't to the runoff that they saw I'm worthy. And it's just an editorial. It's just what they think.
Yeah.
I ain't talking about what I think. I'm talking about what I know and what I lived. And black and brown children on the South and West Side need an opportunity to be educated. You wonder why they out in the streets. Those 50 school closings, they still looking for kids. They're still trying to figure out what happened to those families.
Help me out here. You were a school activist for many years. That's when I first met you, actually. You were talking about overcrowded 52 kids. I remember when you said the 52. I remember the phone conversation. The 52 kids. I was like, 52? I didn't believe you, remember? I don't believe you. There were 52. Come on down and see it. Then they wouldn't let me in the school. That's a whole other story, yeah. All right. So one of the things that I hear all the time is we can't afford it. And yet we can afford money for the Lincoln Yards development, or we can afford
That's an
money
empty TIF that they're going to port TIFs from my community again to make sure that that project gets done. That's bull. That's bull. I'm voting no. I don't talk. I don't talk the talk. I walk the walk. And so it's the same thing with the cannabis. I voted no. Us being on the behind the ball when there are 11 folks who don't look like us, who are not from our communities, already have the licenses is an issue for me. We got 20 votes on the Black Caucus. We got 17 votes on the Progressive Caucus. There's some overlay. We can make shit happen. Harold taught us the lesson. They did it to Harold. Yeah. Why she gonna be any different? See, it's because we're so busy of getting our little piece here and our little piece there instead of looking at the entire picture. Say we all can eat. I always say there are enough pieces of pie for everybody to eat if we stick together.
Have you had an opportunity to directly tell Mayor Lightfoot what you're saying to me right now?
Around the CBA, yes. We've had some conversations.
CBA, the President Obama.
And around progressive revenue. Don't tell me about you worried about LaSalle Street moving. Bye. See you later. You've been here long enough. 1 penny on each transaction would get us out of debt. Us taxing the rich. The real estate transfer tax. Uber and Lyft. They use up enough. They should be paying more. People who profit off of us should pay. Period.
It seems as though there's absolutely no will whatsoever right now in the city of Chicago to do the things that you're talking about.
Yes, there is. There is. She's going to support, we talked about the pilot program. And so it was a resolution I introduced last month to talk about taxing these university and hospitals. They get all of our service and pay absolutely nothing. I am by the biggest set of patronizers of pain in the world. I'm by the University of Chicago. And while I have transparent conversations with them, they need to pay what they owe. They got a 70-year history of displacing folks. If you look at what a majority of the universities and hospitals are, where are they? In black and brown neighborhoods where they push us out. Pay what you owe. We'll give you an opportunity. We'll say, this is what you're going to pay. But then we're going to organize and we're going to put in the ordinance that says you got to pay. So what you want to do?
Yeah.
You want to be forced, or do you want to come to the table and say, we're willing to do this? But either way, you're going to give up something.
When you talk to other aldermen in the city council, do they agree with you, or do they tell you, Jeanette, you're pushing too much, you're demanding too much, you're not going to get this, so stop talking, so forcefully and just go along?
So one of my coworkers told me, like, you're the person we're worried about, you're the threat. And I was like, why? They don't know how I got down there. Oh, I got down there because I got on these doors and I talked to people and I agree with what they agree with, but I didn't go down there and pretend to be somebody I'm not. And I ain't owed to nobody. I got the union support, and I tell people that all the time because I sat in the community and labor table for 10 years, and it was not easy. I haven't always agreed with the unions. I respect them, but that don't mean I agree to them. I'm in this seat because I got up off my ass and talked to my people and say, what is it that you want me to do? I'm not going to get down here and act like I don't know you once I get in this seat. You're going to have a seat at the table. And so for me, it's being who I've always been, a person that stands up for what's right. Because it ain't no gray area for me. Either you right or your ass is wrong. And if you wrong, I'm going to tell you all day long.
Jeanette, it's funny. I had a conversation with a gentleman who remained anonymous the other day, but he's a Lord Lightfoot supporter. And I was talking about how we should have nurses, social workers, counselors. And he said, Ben, everybody agrees that we should have nurses, social workers, counselors. And I'm going, well, if everybody agrees we should have nurses, counselors, how come here I am 30 years living in the city of Chicago, we still don't have nurses, social workers, counselors, and librarians in the city of Chicago? So obviously, if everybody agrees, they have a funny way of showing that agreement. My humble opinion, the only way anybody ever concedes on these basic points is like if there's massive resistance. And talk about this in terms of what you went through with a hunger strike to get a high school at Diet High School, to keep them from closing Diet High School.
There is this notion that folks in the community don't care about young people. We don't stand up and fight for them. All we're worried about is how much we can get paid. Yeah, that's some of the people. That's some of the paid ass pastors. That's some of the people that would historically stand behind Ron and say it's okay to close schools. It's okay to close mental health clinics. It's okay to port resources for the Wintrust Theater and DePaul University. But there are some folks that say hell no. And too often those are the people we don't listen to. And so the hunger strike for me was the fork in the road. Because it was either I'm going to fight and organize for the rest of my life, or I'm tired of this shit and I'm going to take my kids to another state where I can make it and it's easy living. I chose to stay and fight because somebody has to be okay with standing up. I tell people every day, I don't wake up in the morning wanting to cuss somebody out. But if I got to make sure that we right the wrongs that this country has done to our people, then that's just so be it. And I don't care who it is. It's the same thing I've said about the CBA. President Obama, Beyonce, Queen Elizabeth. If your ass wrong, your ass wrong, and I'm going to call you out.
Just explain that. People make the CBA, Community Benefits Agreement for the Obama Center. Talk about
So
that.
it's us just saying that we want to be able to stay and benefit from this, the OPC coming. The city of Chicago gave them that land for 99 years for $10. I can't get 3 boxes of cereal and a gallon of milk in this city for $10, but they gave them that land. Yeah. It's making sure anytime investment happens in black and brown communities, low income and working families are the first to be pushed out. And so we're saying protect that class of people that are there. Make sure we build some affordable housing, which I don't know why is this conversation about my investment. Because I want people to be clear. You talking about your investment now, but when you turn 65, that income is leveled because you're retired by then. We'll see what happens to your investment then. We hadn't learned shit from the Olympics because they showed us in the Olympics what's going to happen. You're going to start selling off your buildings. People are going to turn over the condos. And then I'm important. I don't want you to live here. No, I ain't going nowhere. And if you want to move, you can move. But I'm here to stay. And so I'm fighting for everybody who is here now, everybody who lives in this community to stay and be able to not only enjoy the OPC, but benefit from it. We should get the jobs. We should be on those contracts. These people shouldn't get to come out of our neighborhood. They got people now want to come around the community like, how could we help you? We don't need your damn help. We could come up with our own plans for our own community. We don't need your investors. We don't need your dollars. We got it. If they leave our damn TIF dollars alone, if they let me do actually what I'm elected to do, which is help my community organize around what it wants to see and figure out how to use our tax dollars, that best way to build it, we'll be just fine.
And so the community benefit agreement is that something that has to be approved by the Chicago City Council?
Of course it does, because if you think about the United Center pays the property taxes within a mile radius of that community. So once the United Center was built, they got a property tax freeze, the United Center pays the difference. The difference is they saying this is going to be a nonprofit. So who do you hold accountable to make sure that people don't get displaced? You hold the city of Chicago, the people who own the land and the property and give the tax breaks and give the TIF dollars. That's who you hold accountable. And so we're smart enough to go after the city. That's what makes sense. They couldn't have got that land without city approval. They can't get all of these TIF dollars without the city approval. So if the city gonna give them the land, the city should put the protections in place. And don't give me that, oh, we can't afford. Yes, you can. Because if this was Lincoln Yards, if this was 78, if this was Maggie Daly Park, y'all ass would have figured it out. Figure it out now.
Yeah. Or into that list, let me add Amazon. This has been on my mind
lately.
Oh,
Jesus.
I'm going to have to be dealing with this one, Jeanette. It just was a year or so ago, or 2 years ago. Mayor Rahm and Governor Rauner were just throwing so much money at Amazon.
Was going to get them the kitchen sink and everything.
And I didn't see anybody say, we can't afford it.
I was like, Amazon can take his ass somewhere else. They ain't getting a dollar.
Excuse me. I didn't see anybody in the civic or corporate world.
It's just, it pays to sell out. I've been a broke woman all my life. This little money that I get from the city is helping me catch up on my bills. But it's a headache. It's a notion. But I love being able to stand up and say all of the shit that everybody else won't say. And so when I'm in the caucus meetings, they like, here come Miss Firecracker. Here she come. Oh, there she go. Because I say what they've been thinking. And I'm not, I didn't get down here to play to get along or go along.
What do they say to you? So what, in the back rooms when you're dealing with your caucus members?
You're right. You're right. My first meeting with the Black Caucus, I told them, y'all a joke to the city. I'm not going to join the Black Caucus just because I'm black. We need to use our 20 voice to organize and do something. If y'all not going to do that, feel free to give me back my $500 and y'all have a good day. Same thing with the Progressive Caucus. $1,500 to join. If we're not, those caucuses are not going to, because I'm an organizer.
Wait, time out. It costs $500 to join the Black Caucus and $1,500 to join the Progressive. Why does the Progressive Caucus cost more than the Black Caucus?
You need to ask them. I don't know, but they ain't got all my $1,500 yet. I'm paying in installments. I'm broke. I can't get them up no $1,500. And then I'm going to be on the Women's Caucus, so I'm sure it's a price in there. But for me to be on all those, I'm not just going to be on there just to be nice and take a picture and stand with people to be friends. I'm good. I got enough friends.
So what did that? So the other members, start with the Black Caucus. What do they say? They say you're right.
I'm right. I'm righteous. Stand up. We felt like we didn't have a say-so. We felt like our arms were tied. This is an opportunity. And see, the difference is I come with the community. So you can piss the community off if you want to, because these people protest. These people go to your office. These people can continue to play about this community benefits agreement if they want to. Guess who office they going to be at? The Department of Housing. Guess who they going to doorstep they going to be on? Marissa Navarra. Guess who house they going to be at? Lori's. And they're righteous to do that. You can't keep, y'all are playing. We do not have time to play games at city council. We're playing with people's lives, and it's wrong. That's why so many of our people live in Iowa. They go to Minnesota. They're in Arizona. They're everywhere but Chicago because they can't afford it anymore, and they are tired of fighting. I got some good fight up in me, so let's fight.
What's the Black Caucus's attitude about the current teacher strike?
For the most part, they know it's righteous and they right because they hear it from their constituents. I think the hardest part of this is, predominantly in our neighborhoods, people have to send their kids to these spaces. And we're concerned about, it's like the people who work at 42 Mass Medicine in the district office. How much relationships do they really have with these kids? I don't really trust them. I got a son who's autistic. He's 15. He has a dedicated aide. First of all, I wouldn't send him to be in the building with some people who are not qualified, educated enough. They're the same people who get promoted for looking over rape cases. These are the same people, the same recycled folks. They kick them out of one space in the city, then they put them in CPS to make them comfortable because they was part of the sellout. So no, I'm not sending my babies to be at school with them. I'm just not going to do it. And I'm concerned about the parents who, I got the luxury to do it.
What would you think the response from the powers that be in the city would be if all the members of the Black Caucus and the Chicago City Council, all of them, each one, showed up on a picket line at their neighborhood schools to support their teachers and stood with the teachers union and the call for more nurses, social workers? If it wasn't just Jeanette, I know you're doing it. All right,
there are a bunch of people that are doing it.
Okay.
Rosanna, Byron, Matt Martin, Maria Haddon. You got Carlos out there. You got some folks who are out there. That's not just the newbies either. There are a bunch of folks.
Well, you didn't name anybody from the Black Hawk. Maybe Matt Martin and
Maria Haddon.
Okay, but what
I'm trying to think. Jason Irvin might have been on the picket line. Melissa, yeah. There's been some people from the Black Caucus, but I think if we all stood together and say this is wrong, then Lori would have no choice. Remember, her budget is coming up. She needs our vote. I ain't voting yes because of that. I'm sorry. They can play the play if they want to. I'm just gonna call out BS when I see it.
Let's get this. So I want to hear this straight up. Make sure I'm understanding this. So you're linking your vote on the budget to Lori's behavior with her intransigence, reluctance to put in a contract, a guarantee that the public schools have nurses, social workers, librarians, etc.
Correct. I'm sorry. Those young people are the most important thing, and it's the only thing that's going to help us fix this mess. You think about what's going on with this climate change. These young people, if they're educated and treated right in this space, they're going to fix what we messed up because we fucked this up. Our generation did. We just did. They're going to fix it. And for you not to want to support them on the front end, that's just like this universal pre-K cap they put in they put in CPS. CPS can't get K through 12 right. So we gonna let them mess up the kids that's 2 to 5? No. And we don't talk about that you took the money from Black and Latino women who run these organizations. So you just killed Black businesses. No, you're wrong. That's stupid. Don't do that. I'm standing up for my people.
Talk about that universal pre-K cap.
So universal pre-K, the money usually goes to these daycares. So in our community, it was Little Angels. We got Metropolitan Family Services. We had a bunch of good services. When they took the money and said, we're going to put universal pre-K in CPS, so the kids gonna only be there at 2:30, 3 o'clock when the school closed. A lot of these places stay open till 6, 7, 8 because parents need it. Some of our parents work 2 and 3 jobs. So they needed this universal pre-K. They support the entire family. CPS don't even support kids when they family members get shot if you live on the South and West Side. I know families who've lost a brother, an uncle, and an aunt all in the same year. And because it was not a sibling, CPS would not send out the crisis team. So we gonna let them fuck up kids 2 to 5? We gonna let them mess up the babies? It's not the same type of nourishment. It didn't make sense. And they didn't, who did they talk to? They didn't do a needs assessment as usual. They quick to say data. You didn't do a needs assessment because we didn't need CPS to do universal pre-K. They can't get K through 12 right. Let's let them concentrate on what they already don't do well.
Let's just back up here because what you're saying, just take a moment to reflect. Whenever there's a particularly large number of shootings in Chicago that affect kids who go to the public schools, there's all this outcry in all the newspapers about how can we tolerate this? How can we put up with this? And then fast forward to a situation where the teachers union, I don't know why it should come down to this. Why it just get me started here, Jeanette. Why it should come down to a strike thing to demand that the Chicago public schools hire nurses and social workers in communities where kids are getting shot. Why it would take a teacher strike to do that? Why did they just do that? Forget Lori doing it. Rom should have done it. Daley should have done it. But here we are at a teacher strike. So the same people who say it's so horrible that these kids have to be.
But think about this:
subjected
it's
to this.
the
They won't hire
same
the nurses.
lawyers. It's the same people that were in play when Daley and Rom. So you expect them to do something different? It's the same folks. Janice was there with Rom. Those same lawyers that were fighting the teacher strike back in the day are the same lawyers that's sitting at the table. So you expecting them to do something different? And Lori has to be smart enough to look at some of this herself. In my community, when somebody calls me and say, this is what's going on in the community, well, I want to believe every one of my constituents, I investigate. Tell her to take her ass down to Mollison School and see. Tell her to go to Burke Elementary. Tell her to go to Teal. Tell her to go to Fisk. Fisk has just had a situation where a child was drugged out of the building and the principal watched. And they left this kid outside for 15 minutes. That ain't okay. You got to be able to do your own work. Part of the problem is we got too many people in politics who ain't from Chicago, who don't get it. And that's my struggle with Lori and her team. She is surrounded by people who are not Chicago born and bred it. You could be born here, but be bred it here, that's a different thing. Right. That means you get the politics, you get pay to play, you get how the pieces connect. Yeah. She doesn't have enough people like that around her. And so when it comes to me, they try to keep me and her away from each other. Because you know why? I'm going to tell her the truth. Because I don't want her to fail. I got so sick of hearing that she was a black gay woman. Why can't she just be a black woman? Because I don't care who you sleep with, who you date, or how you live your life. Are you going to roll up your sleeves and do this work to make our city what it's supposed to be? If you are, let's stand together. If you not, move your ass out the way or get rolled over.
That is Jeanette Taylor. I'm going to disagree with you one little piece. I've been around this town a long time, and the people who are from Chicago bred didn't do such a great job when they were running things. Daley had...
I said bred it. Everybody ain't bred it. Okay. I don't care if Daley was born here. Daley was a neighborhood cat. Now, he was the racist as the days is long, but I bet you he didn't want to hear no disrespect from the people in his community. It's a difference. Your policies are what they are. We ain't gonna be on the same size. But when you bred it here, that means you owe to the people in your community. And Daley was in his community. If you say that, Rom, hell to the no. It was a mistake altogether picking his ass.
Don't blame me for that one.
Oh, I don't. I don't blame you for that one. I blame us not being organized. Because if we had organized, Chewy would have been in that damn seat, period.
Yeah, and there was an election before that in 2011. Jeanette Taylor's in the studio. She's fired up. We're gonna take a break. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask her about what I call the reefer bill. She was one of 10 people who voted no, and then I'll probably ask her a national political question or two. She's got a big announcement she wants to make today. I think she's gonna announce who she's supporting for president. We'll be right back with Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor after this.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
The union will say they need a nurse in every school. I agree. And we put it in writing in the contract in a way that ensures that it happens. The union will say that they want more support for students experiencing homelessness. We did that. We offered to put those additional supports in the contract. And here at City Hall, our Department of Housing and our Department of Children and Families and Support Services, we are making historic advances when it comes to affordable housing and dealing with homelessness. The union says it wants smaller class sizes memorialized in the contract. We agreed and offered more funds to reduce class sizes in high poverty schools, along with an enforcement mechanism that will make it happen. So why don't we have a deal? The union has told the public repeatedly that the two issues we need to resolve are class size and staffing, and we have met their needs. But behind the scenes, they've continued to bring up additional bargaining issues that they say must be resolved before they can have a contract. For example, the union is still demanding to shorten instructional time by 30 minutes in the morning. We won't do that. We will not cheat our children out of instructional time. And I won't agree to any changes that do that. The union wants more money.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
You know, you haven't played that song in a while, and whenever you do, it gives me an opportunity to say this. Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor is not only a powerful force for truth and justice on the 20th Ward of the City of Chicago, she plays a mean piano, and that's Jeanette Taylor playing the piano on that song. See the piano's right over there, keyboard.
Yeah, no.
No.
I might could carry a tune, but I cannot play the piano.
She can carry it. Can you? Are you a good singer?
I am. I used to sing in the Baptist church. My grandfather was a traveling preacher, and my mother had 14 siblings, and so they had a singing group that traveled. So yes.
14 siblings?
Yes.
Wait, I'm going to do the math. That means there were 15 kids in the family.
It was 14. She was one of 14.
Oh, I got you. She was one of 14. Yes. They would sing. Well, Dennis, at the start of every show, just to embarrass and humiliate me, he makes me sing a song, whatever's on my mind. So today's song, I heard it on the radio last night. It's been on my mind, Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin. So he made me sing that today at the start of the show.
Do it again. Come on, let's hear it.
Chain, chain, chain.
Come on. Chain, chain, chain.
Yeah, man.
Chain, chain, chain.
Chain of fools.
Wow, she can sing. You know, awesome. Every chain has got a weak link.
It does.
That's a line in the song.
All right, before we get out of here, we may do maybe go barbershop quartet style, all of us.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we do have some things to read here. The live stream chat loves you, Jeanette Taylor, by the way.
Oh, no. Jeanette Taylor comes on the Ben Joravsky Show. Mayor Lori Lightfoot doesn't like it, but our viewers love it.
She respects what I think. To be honest, she might not agree with me, but she respects that I have my own opinion and I do my research.
Our friend Radio Doogie weighed in. He says she needs to run for president. We need this type of fierceness in the Democratic Party. This is what I'm looking for. Big ups to her. And Bruce says, hey, or at least mayor.
Oh, mayor, yeah. Well, Jeanette was at the Hideout with us last month, and so on the north side, and when she was done, and basically she didn't change just because she was on the north side in front of a room full of white people. There were people coming up, taking pictures, hugging her and everything. By the way, on November 5th, Jeanette, we're going to have back at the Hideout. We're going to be back at the Hideout for First Tuesday. We're going to have Stacey Davis Gates with us. So we'll see how she does.
Exciting.
Yes, very exciting. Stacey Davis Gates.
And before we wrap it up here, Mayor Lightfoot, we got some updates on her as well. Shout out to our colleague Fran Spielman. She sat down with Mayor Lightfoot today, and based on her video, which you can check out at chicago.suntimes.com this weekend, all right? It says here, Mayor Lightfoot acknowledged Friday that she will have no choice but to raise property taxes, which were more than doubled by former Mayor Rahm Emanuel, if her agenda falls flat in the General Assembly's fall veto session.
Raising property taxes.
That ain't right. That's not what you said. That's not what you're gonna do. If she follows, we have these briefings, and so we've been having briefings every week on how do we raise revenue to get out of the hole. If she takes on pilot, which is going to tax the universities and hospital. If she does a LaSalle Street tax, a penny. If she taxes the millionaires, we could get out of the hole. We could. We don't have to raise property taxes. Don't fall for it. They're depending on this casino. They're going back down in Springfield to do the casino deal, and they're hoping that and the cannabis gets us out the hole. No. It's not.
All right. Speaking of cannabis, you were one of 10 no votes on the city council's on the ordinance. Was it Wednesday? I guess it was Wednesday. Explain why you voted no.
Because the 11 folks who are going to get those contracts they are not people of color, but they want to put them in our communities. And so how do we level the playing field? And us laying the playing field meant we shouldn't have supported that ordinance. And so it's why I didn't. Black and brown folks are not an afterthought. We are tax-paying folks, and we need to be a part of the process on the front end, not the back. And so part of the Black Caucus thought that we can kind of control it through zoning. So because we have a say-so over zoning, but they needed to go back to the drawing board. And Springfield didn't get this right. Like, we are now going to sell what we locked Black and brown folks up for. So we're going to legalize weed, but we're not going to pay reparations to folks who've been spending 10 and 20 years of their lives in jail for the same exact thing. The land of the free and home of the brave for who?
So you were. It was an interesting combination of aldermen that voted no. Ray Lopez, I believe, voted no. My good friend from the 15th Ward, right down the street from you, and I would have thought he would have been a yes vote, but he voted no. Who else voted no? Oh, I believe Marty Quinn from the 13th Ward. I was like, he voted no? That's Mac Madigan's alderman. Something's
Brookins
going
voted
on.
no. Sophia King voted no. There were a bunch
Well,
of
I'm not
David
surprised
Moore.
it's David. I'm not surprised. I've known David for a while.
Your guy.
Yeah, he will vote against
Anthony
the mayor.
Beale voted no.
Well, that's part of that Ray Lopez, Anthony Beale thing.
You know what? Well, I don't agree with them on a lot of things politically. They were absolutely right. He gave an eloquent speech. He was on point. He is absolutely right.
Beale or Lopez?
Beale. Lopez didn't say anything. Beale gave the coming to Jesus speech, which was right. When do we put our people first and say no? If we're not a part of it on the front end, it ain't gonna happen. And we got the power to do that. So he was on point.
Yeah, no, it's always a situation here in the city of Chicago. Well, yeah, we'll vote for this now. We'll deal with this later. Hey, it's the same thing with the nurses. They go, just settle the deal, take the money. We'll deal with the nurses later. You know, Chicago being Chicago.
If it ain't in writing, you can forget it. They done bamboozled us so many times. Listen.
Well, if they believed in nurses in this public school as a universal right that every kid should have, they'd be in the public school, and we wouldn't leave it to a negotiation of a union contract to do something that they should have done 30 years ago.
And people should be thanking the union for putting young people first. They should be thanking them.
Well, let me ask
why
you
nobody else? Why didn't the mayor do it before then? Why didn't Rom do it? Why didn't Daley do it?
Yeah.
Because they don't care.
My old friend Mays Jackson, a political strategist, talk show host, was on Channel 32. He says it's all politics. This is just the union's way of letting Lori Lightfoot know they exist and sort of pay back because their candidate, Tony Preckwinkle, lost. What's your response to Mays Jackson?
How many kids does Mays Jackson have in Chicago public schools? How many has he put through Chicago public schools? It's easy to talk about what you don't live and where you're not sitting at. I got 2 kids, one at South Shore, one at Hubbard High School. And the conditions in both of those schools struggle. Why? Because they're on the south side. The school at South Shore done changed principals and administration so much, my daughter don't know who the principal is. My son is a new autistic kid at Hubbard High School. He was never supposed to be there. He was supposed to go to Lindblom. But because they used their CPS Go app that didn't work for no damn body, that you don't hear about now, that they spent all that damn money on, didn't work. My son is in a school where he's unfamiliar with. I took him to Lindblom to do a tour because with autistic kids, there's a certain way you have to do things. And so I'm tired of people talking about what they think. This is my lived experience. Chicago Public Schools does not do right by black and brown students. The teachers union is righteous and right to fight for their students. You know how many of them spend money and buy clothes for students and supplies for students? You know how many of them stay at 10 o'clock at night? My aunt, rest her soul, Antoinette Perry Sigler, was a teacher for 15 years. You know how many times that she didn't go home to 10 and 11 o'clock doing lesson plans and making sure her school was safe? She was a teacher who was in her early 60s in a wheelchair, but because she didn't agree with the principal, guess what grade she taught? 2nd grade. Who puts a teacher who's in a chair with osteoporosis and skin cancer in a 2nd grade class? So get the hell out of here. And where's the principal association on this? They're too silent for me too.
Yeah. There was a little murmur from Troy early on, but I
murmur hell.
Yeah.
They should get up because they're the people who are made to implement that bad policy. And on the front end, they should be opening up their damn mouths and saying, no, this policy does not work for kids. We've been working for kids for 20 and 30 years. This is not what we're going to do. No.
All right, let's shift gears to the national. We've heard of Bernie Bros, now of Sanders Sisters.
I like it.
I just came up with that.
You just came up with that?
I literally just
I'm
came
a
up.
Sanders sister.
Okay.
I'm a sister for Sanders.
Yeah, talk about it. You made that decision.
So for me, I was torn. The last time we talked, I was torn between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth lost me. She got $60,000 from Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill and Melinda Gates have not been good to the black and brown community. So it's a no for me. And if she get that $60,000 back then, just maybe. But for me, it's Bernie. Bernie's reputation is what it is. He's been talking progressive since the start to finish. He showed his hand. It's not about black and white. It's what's right. And he is what's right for this country. The only thing that Trump has done is made us work together and organize. And so our lesson is learned. Because I don't know about y'all, but I wish somebody would take his damn Twitter and go sit him down somewhere. I am sick. I've never been sick of a person like I've been. Now, Ronald Reagan, I'm going to be honest. When I figured out all the crap Ronald Reagan did, I wanted to dig him up and slap him.
Yeah.
But Trump, we got an opportunity to organize and get him out of place. And what I will say about Elizabeth Warren is she's doing the Hillary to me. Use your power as a woman. That's one of the biggest reasons why Hillary lost. That one thing that she holds as a woman, she did not use. And Elizabeth Warren is kind of doing the same thing. You got to use you're a woman.
All right, let me ask you this. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Let's say Bernie is not the nominee of the Democratic Party. Let's say Elizabeth Warren is the nominee.
She gets my vote. There is no such thing as that I would ever. I don't even say dump. I say 45. He does not even get his name announced in my household and out of my mouth. I'll take a look. If the party gives her the ticket, she is a lot stronger than Hillary was. I will say that. She's a different type. She talks progressive. She knows how we're going to pay for things. And so if the Democratic Party goes with her, I'll go with her. But if they go with Kamala or Corey, I'm moving to Africa. I'm out of here.
Kamala, hold on 1 second, Jeanette. I have to drink the Kamala Kool-Aid. It's delicious. You ought to try some of this Kamala Kool-Aid.
Good. I am good.
All right, so here we heard it here first. She's a Sanders sisters, but if Elizabeth Warren wins,
just some details that I just can't go along with.
I got to tell you this. I've been watching Elizabeth Warren for a long time, and I am a fan of her, and I like how she, in those Senate hearings, she stood up to Wall Street. She was unafraid. She was a voice of progressive politics in the Obama White House. So I'm not going to trash. If I'm for Bernie, because I have a sentimental attachment to Bernie, because he has been in the fight forever, and he has been consistent. But I'm not going to be one of those people who trashes Elizabeth Warren because I prefer Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And,
no, that's not fair.
That's just not how I do it.
And that's not how I operate either. When it came to Lori and Tony, I wrote in Harold Washington.
Well, that was.
I'm sorry, I did. Lori, I felt like was the police, and Tony, they call her the sugar queen. I struggle with both of them.
Mace Jackson calls her the sugar queen.
I struggle with both of them, and I don't like this thing about being a Democrat and we just keeping it in a Democrat, which is why I struggle with the thing around the committeeman seat.
Yeah.
If you do your job, if you do right by your people, you ain't gonna get 100%, but you should get 80% of your folks, and they'll keep you in office. And so I don't like this Democratic machine crap. I don't go along to get along, and I don't want us to pick people in the party just because they in the party. What did they do? How do they operate? Do they vote in the interest of their people? Do they stand up and fight for their people? And so that's what I want this to change, and I hope that's what I bring to the table in this political realm that I don't like being in.
All right, well, let's hope the next time you come on the show, this teacher strike will have been ended, and the nurses will be in the schools, or at least the commitment to hire the nurses will be in the contract, and librarians, et cetera, and so forth. And Chicago can finally really walk the talk as a civilized city. The 21st century, a wealthy city and a wealthy country can afford, I think you and I agree on this, to hire nurses in schools and poor neighborhoods. Yes. Okay,
nurses,
I just think
psychiatrists, psychologists,
and librarians.
Exactly, because we got all these beautiful libraries. We bought these books and no librarians. The kids don't even know what the damn Dewey Decimal System is.
No, that's all old story. Dewey Decimal. I don't even know if that exists anymore. All right, Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor, the Pride and Joy of the 20th Ward. It's a blast having you in here. Thank you so much for coming down. David Faris, political science professor. We're going to bring him on with Candace Castillo and Samina Mustafa when we do our next debate analysis. And Rummana Hussain. Man, that seemed like a while ago. Rummana Hussain was in here from the Chicago Sun-Times. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend. As Jeanette Taylor knows, he's the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And back home in Alton, as Candace Castillo will tell you, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise and take it out of petty cash. See you on Tuesday.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews like this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. What are they going to be? Well, you're going to have to wait to find out. But you can download them at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, or wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Downloaders, we live stream this program. We're up and running, and we're doing fine. We had some trouble this week, but up and at 'em now. 100%. Check out the live stream at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show on Facebook, or the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. We'll see you Tuesday.